Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. To some of y'all, and peace out to the rest of you. Hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. The blackest hearted, blackest minded, blackest man on social media. Black at you again. This time it's really about quite literally black and white and, well, black and everything else. Recent days have actually shed light on a good bit of information for me, things I knew before and of which I did not know as much detail, and things about which I did not know before. I have to say that it gets more nuanced and it gets more detailed and it gets more complex the more digging we do. And if I had not looked into this thing damn near obsessively from my college days, I would not know what I know now and would not be able to inform anybody else. But I remember my first class in college was a history class. And at Morehouse, some of you might remember Marsiki Scales, and he talked about the history of being black in general. And he had this book, I think it was called Ma'afa, which was a word in one of the continental languages. It means the slave trade or the tragedy or something similar to a Holocaust. And at the end of the book, they said, we're not going to let the Arabs slide either. Black folks were taken from Eastern Africa going into the Arab world and even further into India and Afghanistan. I'm going to tell you that is true. And there were a lot of things that I was unaware of and a lot of things that were not covered in that book that I have since learned. I'm not going to go too much into the history, but I am going to say this. This incident in Palestine, and that's really what the land probably should be called, but this incident in Palestine has shown some things. I don't want to see this sort of thing divide black folks, but I realize it's too late. And as a matter of fact, this incident is not even going to merely divide black folks. It's going to most seriously divide those of the Hebrew Israelite belief system. There are those, just like there are Hebrew Israelites who believe that black folks came from Africa, those who believe we came through Africa, and then those who believe that African black folks are nothing like any other black folks. They damn near have an anti-African, matter of fact, it is an anti-African belief system. They are not all uniform about this. Much the same way, they will become divided about this because there are those who in Chicago were provocative to pro-Palestinian demonstrators. And shout out to Bilal of the channel The Features. He covered this and did work on it. And the ones that you saw in that movie are going to become the most divisive, because many people that are Hebrew Israelite don't think that it is okay to oppress somebody no matter what heritage you claim. Certainly, if you claim a heritage that's not yours, you can't justify oppression based on that, because you already claimed one that's not yours, even if you didn't know that it really wasn't yours. But many simply don't believe as human beings, let alone as Black folks, that it is okay to do what they're doing to Palestinians, Black and non-Black Palestinians alike. And the ones that were on the bullhorn in Chicago at this pro-Palestinian rally were saying things like death to Allah, which is a serious blasphemy. And many people of any monotheistic belief system would not say something like this. They would turn around, and if there's another HI member that would say to them, wait a minute, that's blasphemy. Let's not do that. Let's not say stuff like this. This is what would happen. The ones that you saw in Chicago would sit up and start calling them heretics and hypocrites and disbelievers for being fair and for being just. Now, I initially said that what Black folks should do is refuse to say much about this, even though we know that the Palestinians are right for defending themselves, and the fake Israelites, the Ashkenazis and the Khazar, are wrong for oppressing them. They would be wrong for doing this to anybody, and they do this even to each other. The fact remains that I was going to say to Black folks, well, look, even though we know who's right and who's wrong, let's sit this one out. They're going to have to sort this out themselves. Now, if I had to pick a side, I would pick the Palestinians, but I could not in good conscience tell anyone darker than the stereotypical average Palestinian to go and support them, because I don't know how much they would care. But to be fair, there has been a Black Palestinian solidarity before. Just to be fair, historically speaking, that's actually been the case. You see, Palestine did side with Black South Africans against the apartheid regime. They did. They backed up Mandela. They absolutely did. So I understand why Black South Africa would say, no, we got that. We with them. It makes perfect sense. That's South Africa. That's their jurisdiction. And I do believe that Black South Africans are right when they are fighting financially to this day to try to get that wealth that the minority had in South Africa. Now, that same wealth divided amongst the majority is not going to be wealth, but I do believe that they're right in their fight against the economic apartheid that still remains in South Africa. I believe that Malcolm X back in, oh, wait, I see somebody mention that. Abdullah mentioned that. Assalamu alaikum, Abdullah. Malcolm X mentioned this. And at the time that Malcolm X mentioned this, Malcolm, I don't think, was aware that the Arabs in general, it's not limited to Palestinians, but that the Arabs in general have a really bad habit of calling us slaves. It is not on account of any nationality. It is not on account of a language that we might speak. It's not on account of a Black person not being Muslim or being Muslim. It is not on account of this. Arabs call Black people slaves because we're Black. That's racist. They don't even say this out of hatred. To be fair, I mean, I live in Saudi. I know they don't say this out of hatred, but they got that ignorant racism, and that's bad enough, and I don't find that to be easily forgivable. It's still insulting because they don't tolerate it. You're not allowed to sit up and say that somebody was Arab, but he's nice. You're not allowed to say that a woman is Arab, but she's beautiful. You could say she's Arab and she's beautiful, or she's gorgeous. Now, they may say, well, how the hell did you see her? It depends on in which country you are and in which country she comes from. I'm sorry, from which country she comes. Is that better English? But you could say that. And you know what? Why not? That is a compliment. But if you say she's Arab, but she's beautiful, they don't tolerate that. They would say, what the hell you mean, but? But they'll turn around and say, oh, I met this, this actress in that movie is black, but she's gorgeous. And they don't think anything about it. I told a cab driver one day, just to brag, because I learned early on, let the rideshare drivers know that I'm black. I said, oh, I only marry my own race. I only marry black women. He was like, well, what do you do about the ugliness? And I said, I just told you, I only marry black women. I don't marry white women. That's what I do about the ugliness. I don't marry women that even call themselves white. Oh, he wasn't ready for that. With that being said, I don't apologize for saying this to him. For the most part, the extent of what we consider to be Arab racism is just them thinking that we're just less attractive than other groups of people. That's still bad enough. And calling us slaves. That's still bad enough. See, not all Arabs are Muslim anyway. I mean, many Palestinians are actually Christian, but I'll tell you this straight away, right off the bat. Those who are Muslim, and that is the majority, are not allowed to side with the oppressor against the oppressed, because Muslims in general are not, whether you're Arab or anything else. And we black folks that are Muslim are not allowed to side with the oppressor against the oppressed. The difference is that we understand that. And a lot of us are so sick and tired of seeing everybody else that's not black side with the oppressor when the oppressor's not black, that we're now beginning to lose sight of that and start saying, well, you know what? No, they deserve to be oppressed. There are black folks who celebrate when Palestinians get bombed by Isra-hell. And I said it, I pronounced it correctly. That's what it is, that we're going through this black anoia, and some of us are overreacting to it. Now, I would say to us, yeah, we got to check ourselves. But with the minute someone that's not black says anything about it, I turn to them and I say, no, see, you need to fuck the shuck up and go talk to your own people, because that's the reaction to what the hell you all say. You have no solidarity with black folks when we have to go against someone on average paler than us, and that's pretty much the whole entire damn world. You know what, Abdullah? The funny thing is that in New Orleans, whether you see these Palestinians, they're mistaken for the lighter skinned Creoles at first glance. I can remember a classmate of mine in middle school, and I'm from the Gulf Coast. Same interstate. I remember being, and there was a Palestinian girl that had settled, her family had settled in my town. I kid you not, I thought she was Creole. And I asked her, I was a little kid, and I asked if her last name was French, and she said, no, it's Palestinian. And I was like, what does that mean? Because I didn't know what Palestine meant. I'd heard the word Palestinian on the news and stuff. And I said, so was that black, or was that Creole black, or is that just white, or what is it? And she said, Palestinian, period. I thought she was Creole. I'm not the only one. It turned out that she actually knew the girl from across the street from me, who is Creole. And, you know, they've been to school together before. The one she resembled, she actually knew. Couldn't tell the difference. Notice I didn't say they look like Creoles. Creoles look every kind of way, to be honest, but she looked like your stereotypical lighter skinned Creole. That's the real. And so when I visited the Gulf Coast, and I visited my hometown since then, going into some of these stores. I've been there, talked to them in Arabic since I've learned it, enough of it having lived here. Sometimes they're Egyptian and I don't understand what they say when they answer back. I just, okay, I'm sorry, I don't speak that dialect. That's another language. No, it's not another language. Yes, it is. You speak Egyptian. Don't say you speak Arabic. You speak Egyptian. Maybe it's related to Arabic, but that's Egyptian. Don't play with me. You change 5 letters around for fun because you want to. Well, I'm not Arab. You do that to me, I get confused. I don't know what you mean. God have mercy. Don't blame me. Don't look at me like that. You speak another language. And they get pissed. Proud for nothing. That's the Egyptian for you. Palestinians, they have their own slang, but you can at least clearly hear what they're saying. Their speech is not necessarily mumbled, it's just the vocabulary is changing. But if you speak to them in classical Arabic, they'll either speak it back or they'll tell you I can't speak classical. It's one of the two. They're pretty honest about that. But the thing is, they understand that oppression is wrong, but they don't have the same. They don't understand our solidarity. Or let me put it like this. They don't understand our antipathy towards white America that they have towards Isra-hell. They don't get it. And that is not a Palestinian thing. That's an Arab thing. The funny thing is, the youth from amongst the Arabs are starting to get it. To make it worse, wait a minute, Abdullah E., you just wrote down masjid instead of masjid, bruh. I got to tickle your stomach for that one, bruh. I got to teach you. You just said that's what Arabs do. Arabs will be like, no. I didn't say, what is it they'll say? Oh yeah, they'll say, no, I didn't say safe. I said safe. And I'm like, bruh, that's the same thing. What you talking about? But the only difference is you did it in writing. So remind me to make jokes. Remind me to clown later on. I'm joking, Abdullah. I'm not really going to. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Musket. Okay, yeah. Yeah, that's the way that the Egyptians do it. Yeah, musket. I had one yesterday when, the day before yesterday when he drove me home from the airport. He kept on using Egyptian Arabic. I'm like, bro, I don't speak Egyptian. Can you use classical Arabic? And he could not clean it up. Couldn't do it. Then I asked the man in English, where are you from, sir? Egypt. Oh, so you can pronounce a J. Because if you couldn't, you would have said Egypt. Oh, so you're not from Egypt, you're from Egypt because you speak in a white man's language. Y'all see where I'm going with this? See, they straighten up when they start thinking in the concept of white, in the context of whiteness, even if they're not consciously thinking of its whiteness. That is not a Palestinian thing. That's an Arab thing. And so now I'm going to have to tell you, black folks, the secret's out. They know that we're having debates amongst ourselves about this. And so, they're not going to ask me, well, what do black folks say? They're not coming to me and asking me that because there ain't no Palestinians out here where I live. I mean, maybe there are some with a Jordanian passport, but I don't talk to them. I may see them and I don't even know what their nationality is, but I pretty much teach Saudis. That's it. But let me tell you this, though, gentlemen, on a Rizal. You live in stateside, you probably are going to have them ask you. And you're going to have to say to them, the best thing to tell them now is, look, we actually know that what they did to you was wrong. We know that. But see, here in the West, don't say it in America. Don't do that. Say here in the West and there in the Arab world, we are the Palestinians and you and the white folks are the Israelis, or I should say the Zionists. You talk like the Zionist about us and the white folks act like it. And straight up say to them, where's your Islam? Now, when they start saying to you, no, bro, that's when they start saying, well, no, I mean, we don't say that and we have solidarity with you or we understand. You can say, well, I mean, you might realize that we didn't start the racial conflict. You might realize that. But see, if we sit around talking to each other and we insult you because of your DNA, we get checked for it. We'll check each other. Now, we can insult you because of what you do, and all of us would agree. But if we insulted you just for your DNA, just because you're not white, but you're not black either, if we insulted you just based on that, somebody would check us for it. We would check each other. You turn around, call us slaves just because we are black. And you don't check each other for it. If you're sitting at your dinner table with your uncle, and he says something about the Abid that go into his store and he don't like them, because he's in the worst neighborhood anyway. And no matter who lives there, they're going to be the worst of people. And they usually aren't even the worst of people. But he just don't like the poor area in which he lives. So he's insulting everybody that comes through his door. And they're black and they're poor because that's how the system is set up, do you check him because he called black folks slaves? That's what you say to them. You tell them, look, we don't think that you're wrong in that conflict. We don't think that. We just understand that if we sit up here and support you to the extent that a Muslim's supposed to support anyone that's oppressed, you will not return the favor. That's what you tell them. You say, look, we don't think that you deserve what you're getting. We just understand that it's to no benefit of ours if we step in for you. Now, some of them, actually a lot of them, because like I said, many Palestinians, different from other Arabs, many Palestinians do actually likewise think that we don't deserve the oppression that we're getting. That does happen. Matter of fact, many Arabs in general think that. Many Arabs are actually appalled at the violence that the Western world will perpetuate against us. They can't stop calling us slaves, but they can't perceive of shooting us because of that. But you know what? A race mixed guy here in Saudi was stopped by a police officer and asked about his dreadlocks and told that they were against the law. I'm not joking. I wish I could make that up. Do you know how I found this out? I found this out because his sister was one of my students when I was living in Riyadh. Now, the difference is that here, he was able to say there actually is no law against that. It's a hairstyle. He was able to say this to the officer. If he doesn't get violent with the officer's not supposed to get violent with him, and it didn't happen. He just politely said to the officer, actually, there's no law against it. So that was different. You know, if a police officer goes to you and says, listen, your hairstyle is against the law, and you know he's lying, and there are no witnesses, and he says, we're going to that barbershop over there right now, and you're going to pay for the haircut. I'm going to sheet the bit out of you at this point because I don't want to curse. You know what happens? You better go into that barbershop and walk out bald. Not because it's legal what he did, but if there are no witnesses, he's going to get away with whooping your behind for keeping your dreadlocks. So yeah, it's better here. I'll tell anybody that. I'm here and I'm free. It's better here. And it's not just about the chicks either. Oh yeah, Arab women, they love that black bodyguard look. They love that. That black man with muscles, looks like he's somebody's bodyguard. That's what they want. Don't believe me? I was in the car with my friend in Riyadh when a lady pulled up. And his car is a humble car. That's the word he used to describe it. I'm not knocking his car. I like it. I just wish the seatbelt worked better. But he's doing the best he can. But she pulled up to him in a nicer car and asked his opinion on my lips beautiful. She'd gotten a lip operation. And she didn't stop and ask anybody else. She didn't even know I was in the car until I leaned over to see who this was that pulled up on the side and was speaking to my mans. So yeah, they go for that. Bald-headed brother with some muscles on, or a tall brother, yeah, I've seen them myself. Matter of fact, at the same place where that student of mine's told me that her brother got stopped by a cop by his dreadlocks, at that same place, I remember seeing this black Saudi man. He stopped me because when I saw him, I threw my head up. So what's up, blood? First, assalamu alaikum, of course. I said, assalamu alaikum, what's up, blood? And he's good in English. So he realized, oh, this is a black American. I mean, he needs a little sun, but he's, black American. So he asked me later, where you from? And I said, well, told him, originally I'm from the Gulf Coast of the U.S. And he said, what about originally? And I said to him first, I said, personally, I'm from the Gulf Coast of the U.S. And he said, but before that. And I said, well, before that, we were in West Africa. And he said, oh, cool. Yeah, my people are from Nigeria. You probably heard of the Hausawi. And I told him, bruh, the Hausa are definitely one of my mother's ancestral tribes. I'm pretty sure. That you do a DNA swab, we're going to come back with some Hausa ancestry. I'm pretty sure about that. And some Fulani too. We slap hands. We were chopping it up for a little while. Yeah, that's how it was. When I first saw this man, he was surrounded by a bunch of pale Arab women that were chatting him up and laughing and giggling. He was cool. He was being nice and polite, but they were surrounding him. But it's not just about that when I say that it's better over here. And you know what else, Charles Irby? They preserve their language. The houses that live in Saudi Arabia have preserved the Hausa language in the Hijaz. And then there are the Falata, and they intermarry, just like in Nigeria, they intermarry each other to the point that everyone from one tribe has ancestors from both. It's the same thing over there in the Hijaz. If you're a Falata, you got Hausa ancestry and vice versa, same thing. But the Fulani language is not as widely spoken. Just like in Nigeria, Hausa is the language that dominated. In the north, Hausa is the language, the dominant language among Black folks in the Hijaz. I started trying to learn it. I've actually prioritized Hausa over Arabic at this point. Cats ask me, when are you going to wear a thobe and a shamag? I'm like, bruh, I'm going to put the Hausa clothes on if I'm going to put on anything else, I'm going to put the Hausa clothes on. Why? Why not? I'm related to them. I'm not related to you. That's what I have to tell them. I'm not related to you. You're not my cousins, even though we probably are. I have to tell them, no, we're not, because the message has to be sent to them, even though they're not hateful and they're not violent and they're not dangerous. On occasion, the message has to be sent to them. No, we value ourselves. We don't agree with your assumptions that we're lesser or that we're less fortunate. No, we just have it a little bit harder with certain things because you think this way and you happen to be in the majority. I'm going to say this to those of you that are Muslim and you ain't Black and you're talking about Palestine and you want Black folks to be more vocal, whether Black, Muslim or not. I'm going to say this to you all now. If you are Muslim and you ain't Black and you got something to say about this, let me explain to you that the lack of support you are now getting from Black folks of any religion is your fault. It is not just because you didn't let us marry your daughters. That's not it. It's deeper than that. Now, I think some of us tend to talk about that a lot because that's a pretty good litmus test of how a community feels about you. One of the markers of the belief in inequality is when a community allows its men to marry women from another community, but they don't allow the men from that other community to marry the women to whom they're related. That is pretty much a marker. Or just screw around with them. In America, white men had access to Black women. Black men got killed for access they had to white women. Not only that, but in America, Black folks were systematically kept away from other non-whites, specifically for two reasons. One, they didn't want us comparing notes with them, and that tended to work pretty well. But also, number two, something else. They wanted to make sure that we remained broken, and they knew that the only women that were going to actually break us were the women from whose wombs we came, and the women who came from the same wombs as us. They knew that the Latin American woman was not going to break us. They knew that at that time, the Italian women were not going to break us, or the other women that were not considered white at the time, but later became considered white. They knew, for instance, they knew these women weren't going to break us. They knew that the original American women were not going to break us and were not going to side against us. They knew this. And so they had actual policies, believe it or not, the United States had policies to keep Black folks from living in areas with a large original American population. Yeah, after the Civil War, there were some Southern whites who said, move the N-words out west to the frontier. And there were others that said, if we do that and they get together with the original Americans that the army is fighting, then it could be over. And you know what happened? They sent a few Buffalo soldiers out to the frontier to fight the Apaches. To this day, the Apaches do have a bit of a problem with Black Americans because of the Buffalo soldiers. I can't blame them. But what they don't know is that there were deserters from amongst the Buffalo Soldiers, deserters. They said, I'm not shooting these people that were here first. So they fled, they deserted, and they went into Mexico. And once they crossed the border, they were safe. And they formed a town called El Mulatto, Mexico. What's going on, Jay Lion? I'll check that out after this one, inshallah. Yeah, that town is still there to this day, El Mulatto. I think it's actually a border town. The U.S. has had a policy of this for a while, and that's part of the reason why it was that we were that many of us are just now beginning to understand not only the option to marry from other cultures, Black and non-Black, but even the necessity at times if which you're trying to find the stability. Now we're beginning to understand it. It was only a few years ago, less than 6 years ago, that I finally accepted that I could never again, no, it was right at 6 years ago and some odd months, that I was not going to be able to remarry amongst Western sisters. The summer of 2017, I remember the day. July 31st was the afternoon that I came to that realization. And the friend that helped me to realize that did not live another year. I wish he was alive to hear this, to see what's going on in the Black manosphere. I wish. Allah took him back. He talked about the racism of the non-Black Muslims, especially the Arabs, because he lived in Morocco for a while. His wife was Moroccan and Senegalese. His widow, I should say, is Moroccan and Senegalese. It was her aunt that I married. And I had to correct her aunt about her attitudes towards Black folks. And her aunt comes from a Black father. And I had to get on her at one point. When her aunt asked me for a divorce, I thought it was because of that argument. It turned out later on that that wasn't why. I found out later what it was. But at the time, I thought it was because of the argument. And I was like, if you're going to entertain these anti-Black notions and you're a Muslim, like you're Salafi with a face veil on out in public, yeah, bye, good riddance. I found out later she actually understood and she realized that what I said was right. But she had to ask for the divorce because of the government. But the friend that introduced us had found that Moroccans were calling him Izzy. And it's pretty much, even though Izzy comes from the word Izza, which means honor, even though the fact is they were using the term Izzy to mean nigger. That's what the problem was. He found this out. And I asked my wife at the time, what does Izzy mean? And she said, oh, it's something that they use for Black folks. And I asked her if it was an insult. And she said, no, it's not no, she said it was an insult. Later, when she realized that I was staunchly pro-Black and anti-racist, she told me that it was not an insult. No, shuck that fit. You already told me it was. I'm calling these sand crackers terrorists until they stop. And I'm going to tell you, if you're a Black Arab, I'm letting you know now, if you are a Black Arab, they call us slaves behind our backs, and they're never going to learn until you start calling them the T word to their faces. The minute they say something anti-Black, just casually call them the T word. The mispronunciation of tourist. Nothing else is going to teach them. And that's not all. See, when they start saying, oh, if you can't say that, say, well, you can't call us slaves. Now, here's the other thing. You all Muslims that are Arab, not Black. I'm not talking to the Indians and the Pakistanis and the Afghans and the Persians. I'm coming to y'all next. But to those of you non-Black Arabs that like to call us slaves and then answer by saying, oh, we're all slaves of Allah. Let me tell you something about that y'all didn't know. Your youth are sick of y'all because of your tribalism and your racism. Even if you don't hate anybody, you still don't actually, you act like you're so religiously conservative, but you don't actually stand against tribalism and racism. And your young folks see this and they say, screw you. Your young adult children and your teenage sons and daughters, they see your hypocrisy. They may love you, but they see your hypocrisy and they're sick of you because of it. They just can't tell you anything because you won't listen. You'll just slap them because you're older and you know, you can never learn from someone younger than you. And I'm talking to the ones that are my age and older. Your culture sucks. And I make no apologies about saying that. Your systems, well, they tend to vary from one country to the next. I'm in a country with a strong system and a pretty fair system, as far as I know. I'm appreciative of that. But your culture sucks. And I don't have to respect it. And I'm not teaching your students, I'm not teaching your sons in my classrooms to respect the culture of their parents. F your culture. I've already told my people F our culture when it's dysfunctional. So I got a right to say it to you too, because if we agree on a religion and the religion supersedes my culture or yours, well then so be it, the religion supersedes it. God didn't tell people to act dysfunctional. He didn't tell you to insult people based on race in a way you would not tolerate. You just do it anyway. And when you say, well, you know, we're all slaves of Allah, you don't understand something. Some of your kids who are actually as Bedouin as backwards as you are in small towns and villages think that Abd means black. So when you say we're all slaves of Allah, they think you're saying we're all black to Allah. It's like saying, you know, we're all beggars in front of Allah. Well, that's a true statement. We are. But you're going to compare black folks to beggars? You didn't teach them that Abd actually means slave, even though the name Abdullah means slave of God. Abdurrahman or Abdurrahim, slave of the compassionate, slave of the merciful. Abdul Hakim, slave of the wise. Even with these names, you did not teach them that Abd means slave, not black. So when you say Kulana Abid Allah, we're all slaves of Allah, they think you're saying Kulana Sud Allah, like we're all black to God. So you're still diminutizing blackness in their minds. I had to kick a student out of one of my classes for this in 2018. Anti-blackness, not anti-black violence. I understand. But anti-blackness is a part of your culture. And for that reason alone, your culture sucks and doesn't deserve respect. And all of you aren't even Palestinian. Arabs are not just Palestinians. But because of what you have agreed to do, you now have lost some of the support of a particular group of people, even though that race is represented amongst the Palestinian population, because there are black Palestinians. There are black Jordanians. There are black Egyptians, of course. Black Saudis, black Kuwaitis, blacks. And instead of you getting acclimated to this, you've said certain things that make you sound to us the same way as the Ku Klux Klan. When you say certain things that you take for granted casually around black non-Arabs who have been under racial terrorism of actual white people that you call yourselves to be, because you know you fake white. You scare the hell out of us. See, it starts with equating us to slavery. That's what Europeans did. Then guess what? They actually enslaved us on the basis of race. You haven't done that, but we don't know at what point that's going to happen if you can't learn to watch your damn mouths. So, now I'm going to say this. Oh yeah, Charles, Southern Egypt. Yeah, that's a problem because honestly, bro, Egyptians can be some of the worst. Oh, they're the worst. It's the irony, because when DNA tests were done, the average percentage of ancient Egyptian DNA in the Egyptians that we see today, the average was 67%. That's the average. Can you imagine? The modern day Egyptians that are not ancient Egyptians still have 67% of their DNA from ancient Egypt, but they walk around with more racism than other Arabs, except maybe the Lebanese. And by the way, let me tell y'all, Amira, Exiled Lion, is the one that was on the Anton Lapeep show. Yeah, she Lebanese. She still hasn't fully grasped black equality. It hasn't dawned on her yet. So she sits up and says, oh, well, you know, black people were more racist to me than white people. That's because she was a kid when 9/11 happened. And by that time, black folks had understood something. By that time, we had already heard how they act. We didn't have to be nice to them about that. I never will. And I want to give a shout out to Gail and Knight for coming through on the Cash App. Gail and Knight, thank you from the bottom of my black heart and from the depths of my black mind. Hold on a second. Let me get this sound effect for you. Appreciate that. One moment. It's going to take me. I got to thumb through the phone for this, but yeah, I want you to know I appreciate what you did. It's coming. It's coming. It's just my fingers are faster than the phone is. Hold on. All right. Here we go. Thank you so much. And another sound effect for you. This is shorter, I promise. Yeah, man. The Egyptians can be the worst. They didn't cancel Kevin Hart for any reason other than Kevin Hart made a reference to the blackness of ancient Egypt. That's why they did it. They canceled him because of that, because he made a reference to the blackness of ancient Egypt. He was right. They were wrong. The Saudis didn't do that to him. You can actually tell some Saudis that you're Hausawi or Hausa, and they'll say, oh, yeah, you are the origin and we are the branch. They'll do that at times. Some of them know something. I had a student in my class actually say, actually, we are all black. It's just a question of percentage. The first Arabs were black. I had a student sitting in my class, my current class, say this a few weeks ago. Someone else said, man, that's racist to say that. He was like, how the hell is that racist? If that's the blood we got, it's the blood we got. You mess around here and tell an Egyptian that, oh my God, don't say that. Why the nuck fight, bro? Y'all can be some of the worst. Egyptians, and you ain't black? What the hell, man? I mean, I look at y'all like, where the hell did you get this from? As a matter of fact, they're part of the reason. See, I'm going to tell you Arabs this for the most part. When you, with your nappy ass hair, start saying some of the things you say, even though you don't get violent for no reason, but when you start saying some of the things you say, and then you might get violent if a black person really fires back at you the way you deserve verbally, you may or may not take it to violence. When you do that, you become the reason that my own people don't trust me or anybody that looks like me. I see black Arabs every day. Sometimes they don't even realize that I just spoke to them or waved at them or gave them the head nod. It doesn't dawn on them that it was them I was greeting. I've had that happen before. I'm like, what the hell, man? What's the reason? Because they aren't used to that. And they don't necessarily trust me. Because of the way you act. So they see me with my shade, I speak to them, and they think, does he have some plans for me? What's next? Is he going to ask me if I'm a citizen or try to inspect my papers to make sure I belong here and I'm here legally? Yeah, some of them got that mindset, bro. Had a white Saudi, who wasn't really white, but you know what they call white. I had one tell me this at a wedding, summer 2022. He told me that. He said to me, yeah, If you were trying to get in touch with me, if you were trying to reach out to the ones in the Hijaz, man, they didn't trust you. They thought you were probably going to check for the immigration papers or something. That's why they're not going to trust you like that. You got to know someone that can vouch for you. You can't just speak to them. You can't just see them. Oh, how's it going? And they accept you. He told me that. See, when I went to the Hajj, and a lot of the black Hajis were not willing to engage much. They were not willing to talk much. I don't blame them for that. That's a reaction. So I'm going to stay hard in the paint against any of you that have anything to say about black folks or blackness you would not say about somebody else. Even if you simply think that we are uglier than other races, I'm going to go hard in the paint. I've gotten on some Arabs about stuff like this, and it wasn't even Saudis. It was Egyptians. Had to get on some of them. Well, black women are, I mean, maybe you lay with them, but married them? Yeah, bro, married them. Maybe not a black Western woman, but what the hell is the difference to you, you racist bastard? That ain't why you saying it. You ain't saying that about because of an attitude. You saying it because they black. No, if I was just going to fornicate, I fornicate with one of your dumbass women. Can't even pronounce the letter J correctly until you teach them a white man's language. You don't use our women for fornication. I'll use yours. And I remember when I told one guy that, 2018. He was a religious guy, and he said that. He thought he was going to get me to be his English teacher till he said something that stupid. His friend that introduced the two of us felt bad about it. But his friend, a few months before that, said something about, well, skin bleach isn't really a problem. Maybe they just want to look more beautiful. And I had to get on his friend months before that. The hell you mean look more beautiful? How does skin bleach make you look more beautiful? What the F, bruh? How you going to be an African and tell me that skin bleach makes a woman look more beautiful? And you Muslim too, you going to tell me that looking like the oppressor makes you look more beautiful? The hell kind of Muslim are you? I had to get on his ass about that months before. And he took the correction. He did. Then he introduced me to this guy, and he didn't know this guy was going to say this stuff till he said it. And you all think that black folks don't hear about the dumb stuff you say. Number one, if you say it, I'm going to tell black folks like I'm doing right now. Number two, there are times when black folks, when you say stuff like this and somebody black is listening, because they got plenty of black folks look like me. And you say something stupid like this and you don't realize that another black person's a few tables away. Matter of fact, you know what? Let me tell y'all something. Those of you in the audience right now, let me take a break from giving some of the non-black folks this work. A black British brother that's teaching here with me, one of my new colleagues at my new job, told me, because he speaks Arabic fluently, like he speaks it like I speak English. So when they speak slang, he still gets it. Let me tell y'all what he said. He told me that because they don't know he can speak Arabic, let alone the local slang, that he has heard men brag to each other about blowing out another dude's back. Here, where they're real conservative, he's heard some of them brag about that. I asked him, you ever heard a black Saudi brag about something like that? He said, I haven't even heard about them being involved. That's the funny thing. I know that no race is immune to this in a society in which this sort of thing is there, but people cannot, I mean, even here, the idea is that we're not involved in that. What's going on, Detroit 313? Yes, Lion and MGTOW, you're right. Skin bleaching is an abomination. If it was up to me, I would punish it with a capital punishment. I treat it just like you smuggled in this country, you smuggle in a large amount of any hard drugs, they decapitate you. You get a trial, but they're going to decapitate you in Riyadh. That's what's going to wind up happening. Sometimes if people get caught smuggling something from across the border in Jordan or trying to smuggle it in Iraq, well, that border is pretty sealed tight. But if they do try and they get caught, bruh, they just go ahead and have a shootout with the police because they figure better die now because they're going to turn around, cut my head off. Yeah. So, there are Charles Irving. That I've heard that rumor too. I don't know how often it actually happens. It's probably talked about more than it's actually done. But I did hear that for me to go, if they want to camp in the desert with me, it's cool because I'm a teacher. They're not going to try that mess. But that if it's, they say if it's a bunch of young teenage cats doing that, it could be something like that. And I'm like, no, bro. See, here, everybody's real protective of their daughters and their sisters, and that's cool. They should be. But see, what people don't understand is that even though the people who engage in something like that are probably I'm sure they're a minority. The fact is that you got to protect your sons from this because that minority, however small they are, seems to get around. The elementary schools have a problem with this. At that age, it's not necessarily the kids, it's the teachers. But I had students tell me that high schools were like prisons, except you were only there for a few hours a day. But during the time you're there, it's like prison. You got to get a big dude to be your protector. I'm like, okay, all right. So you know what? Y'all want to sit up here and keep talking like this, and you don't want to check each other just for that word you all use? I'm not keeping secrets. Most people here would never do something like that rainbow business. Most people here don't like that. And they're not going to get the society to accept that en masse. Not now. The problem is that they are not equal to us African descendants when it comes to stomping that stuff out. In other words, nobody here really likes it, but they accept it as a part of life, as a reality. That's the problem. Whereas in Africa, they're like, we're not even going to accept that as a reality. If you do it and we catch you, we put you in jail or we beat you if the cops get there in time. Anti-gravity, I can't say it's lots of Arabs. But what the issue is that they know about this stuff and they just don't stomp it out. That's why it is that if it's a circle of close friends and somebody's like that, he'll sit up and he don't mind bragging about something like that. Whereas, amongst African descendants, if there's a circle of close friends and somebody's like that, he gonna keep that mess a secret, even from his close friends. That's where the difference comes in. Yeah, Charles Irving, that's right. They did ban the singing boys. They absolutely did. Afghanistan is actually where it was more of a problem than it is in the Arab world. It wasn't. In the Arab world, it's known about, but and it wasn't confronted that much. Whereas in Afghanistan, they had to confront it because it was just too much a problem. I mean, there were actually U.S. soldiers that were getting sick and tired of some of the allies, the Afghan allies, doing this stuff, and they were just blowing their brains out. There was a U.S. soldier, I think, that had to stand trial for that because he found out that one of the, I think it was the Northern Alliance guy, was doing this to them young singing boys, and he was just like, you know what, pow, and a bunch of the Afghans were like, but it's not really worth killing somebody over and blowing his head off for. And the U.S. soldier was like, no, it is. It is worth blowing his brains out for. Maybe this is the perfect segue to go in on them too. Afghans, Persians, especially those around that border between those two countries, the ones that are called Aryan. Yeah, they're referred to as Aryan. The Afghans, bro, I'm telling you. Yeah, that's right, Abdullah. Yeah, I heard about that. Matter of fact, Nabil Abdul Rashid talked about that. Nabil is my voice might get a little further away. Sorry about that. Nabil, guess why they were trying to troll him? Nabil Abdul Rashid. Did any of y'all hear about Nabil Abdul Rashid, a comedian in the UK? And forgive me if my voice went out for a little bit. Put a one in the chat if y'all heard about the British comedian Nabil Abdul Rashid. Don't tell him I said British or he'll roast me. Put a one in the chat if y'all ever heard of him. All right, Charles Irby did. Okay, cool. Who else? All right, sorry about the crunching sound, but I'm chewing on some chips too. So I muted the mic for a bit. But all right, so only Charles Irby heard of him. He's married to a lady from Pakistan. He's a black British brother from Nigeria, comedian. He's funny. Y'all look him up. Pretty talented. All these, mostly Indian and Pakistani Muslims were going in on him. You know, because he's black and he was talking against racism. He was calling it out. He's a black Muslim. So when people say, well, you know, you black Muslims, y'all like to sweep this under the rug and not say anything. Man, y'all need to fuck the shuck up. That is not true. Just because they successfully hid this stuff from Malcolm doesn't mean that we are hiding this stuff under the rug. A lot of us were just like, wait, where's the proof of this? And when we started seeing the proof, we started calling them out for it. Like I'm doing. Nabil did this as far back as 2014, 2015. I remember that. Oh, he gave him that work. So he started calling him Bachabazi. He started telling him, don't say nothing to me because I'm standing up against racism coming from you as Muslims. Don't say nothing about it with your Bachabazi tail. That's true, Abdullah. The Taliban, they did not tolerate poppy, opium. It was opium. They did not tolerate opium, and they didn't tolerate that Bachabazi business. Even the U.S. military didn't want to tolerate that Bachabazi business. Well, nobody but a few Northern Alliance and some of their allies that were into that stuff. And then later on, the Afghan army, they were like, well, we're not really going to clamp down on our soldiers for doing this. I mean, what do you want them to do? Sleep with their grandmothers? We were like, bruh, it's really the same. It's pretty messed up. But yeah, man, I'm gonna tell you about the Aryans. Oh, you Aryans, Afghans, Iranians. I got this work for y'all too because you all started this stuff. And don't look at me and say, no, we didn't do that. No, you started colorism. You started racism. It was you. It was an Afghan brother that told me that. Afghan Muslim cat I was working with in my last job, in the last company. He gave y'all up. He didn't cover for you just because he's Afghan and y'all are Afghan. He told me that the Aryan people started this. And that's who Iran is named after today. And the old Afghan airline was called Ariana. That was the Afghan airline's name, Ariana. Look them up. The Aryan people, or the Aryans, after whom Hitler named his so-called master race, yeah, them folks, they started it. Hitler picked the right people after which to name his movement. Well, Kurds, they probably do. Matter of fact, you know what? The Kurds do have that because the same Afghan brother that told me about the Aryan people who started racism and colorism, and he said they began it. He said it was a long time ago they did it. But the Kurds, he said the Kurds were racist as hell. He told me the Kurds don't like anybody. It's not even about race. They don't like anyone. They don't even see non-Kurds as equal to them. He said he had no sympathy for whatever they went through. Now, this the guy that told me this was not a supporter of Saddam Hussein, but he was breaking it down for me, saying, like the Kurds, he said they're so biased against everybody else that he didn't care if Saddam wiped them out. And I asked him, how the hell could you feel this way about them? Because that would make you the same. Well, you know how I'm telling you about the Aryan people, and there was an Afghan brother that told me about the Aryans. He said that he learned about this from the Kurdish brother we were working with. It was a Kurdish guy that told him, I can't stand Kurds. If you want to actually practice, the Kurdish brother, he and I both worked with him. I know who he's talking about. It's just that I didn't know that this guy told him this about the Kurds. But he said that the Kurdish brother that we were working with, when he gets vacations, he has a British passport, so he goes to the UK. He will not go to any part of Kurdistan, anywhere. It's not a country, but you got Kurdish areas in like different, you got them in Iraq, you got them in Turkey. He said he will not go to even to the Kurdish community in the UK because he can't stand them, because he wants to actually practice Islam. And the Kurds are like, no, why? You need to be a good Kurd instead. Can you imagine that? This here's the case. That's right. The highest caste. And to tell you the truth, man, it's not even just the highest caste. You're right, Abdullah. The highest caste, but not only them. The Aryans or the Aryans were the ones that went in, and it wasn't all of them. It was a contingent of them that left their homeland and went into India. But yeah, they went in, they conquered, couldn't keep their hands off the women. But then when they realized that the kids weren't coming out white like them, then they started a caste system to solidify the mixing where it was, so that it didn't progress to the point where they disappeared. Yeah, it was to protect their skin color. Can you imagine? The Hindu caste system was designed to protect the lighter skin color of the Aryan people when they realized that the babies were coming out still brown. Yeah. The word caste in the Sanskrit language is varna, and varna means color. The whole religion is about protecting a white skin color. That's why it was that the real white folks were able to walk their butts into India and eventually and they had to fight for it. Don't get it twisted. They had to fight for it. But they had an easier time colonizing the Hindus than they did the Muslims. Even though it was stronger in the south than in the north. And even now you got it. And I go in on the Indian Muslims too. I'm not letting them off the hook. And the Pakistani Muslims, what's the reason? Because you imitate the Hindus. You got your own little caste system, and color plays a role in that. And I'm not letting you off the hook, because when you do that, you send a message to black folks, then you got to sit up and get mad because your kids are hanging out with the black Muslim kids and don't want to be around white folk. Then you get all pissed off. Us niggers ruined my children. No, you did. I'm gonna talk right now to the Pakistani and the Indian Muslims that are my age, but to the ones that are older than me. Let's say about 50 and up. I'm close to 50, but 50 and up. Let me tell you all what your kids and your younger siblings have told me. See, some of y'all in the age group that I'm talking to, you love rap music. You want to use a slang, but you still don't fully understand black equality. But I'm going to tell you all something about what your kids have said. And your younger brothers and sisters, they told me actually about your anti-blackness. That's how we find out. When you get to talking in the different languages you might speak, maybe Hindi if you're from the north, Usually Hindi is a language, and Hindi and Urdu are the languages in which anti-blackness is the most expressed. And the thing is, you let the Hindus beat you to the discussion on colorism. In India right now, people are actually beginning to challenge colorism and the caste system, but they're Hindus. It ain't the Muslims doing it. The Muslims in India sat back and let the Hindus beat them to the punch. And in Pakistan, there is no discussion about it. White, right, black, get back, end up. They're not discussing it. And their kids are the ones that are telling me about this. The kids are the ones breaking it down for me. And for you too. Y'all want to know more? Wa alaikum salam, Aysara. If y'all want to know more, just talk to their kids, to the young ones. I mean, of course, be nice. They might be a little scared at first if they don't know you. But I mean, hell, they probably won't. And just let them, and just ask them, what is the hard thing about growing up in the West and your parents are from the old school? Where does the culture clash at? Well, they probably won't want me having a conversation with you because you're black and we have anti-blackness. We don't even like dark-skinned Indians. We treat them like they're lesser. And yeah. And see, that's why some people will say, well, black mind ain't no simp, and I ain't. But when they get to talking about black women, I get into business because they're not talking about Western black women because of the attitude. Sometimes they do. Sometimes. But for the most part, that ain't why. I get into business because they talk about black women for being black. They will do and say some of the same things them Egyptian cats would. Well, they're good for fornicating for fun, but don't take them serious. What about the Muslima? You gonna do the same thing to the African-American Muslim woman? Or to the African Muslim woman? Or to the Afro-Latina Muslima? You gonna do the same thing to them too? That's when it ain't got nothing to do with attitude. Nothing at all. That's not what it is. It's not attitude. It's blackness. That's where I draw the line at. We can talk about the attitude all day long. And even then, are you going to say the same thing about the women of your groups that have these attitudes and the white women that got the same attitudes? Or do you just feel the black women are less entitled to have these attitudes because they're black? That's not an okay thing. It's not okay for anybody to have that kind of attitude. When you drive men away and then turn around and blame the men for stuff they didn't do. That's not all right. And here's the other thing. Some of us, black folks, in there say, we tend to look and say, well, that man from Pakistan and the man from India got their wife under control. Sometimes they do. The older school ones probably do. I was finishing Hajj up, and my wife had to make her tawaf at a different time, but I was there. Finishing Hajj up. And between me and the Kaaba, I saw a man, and I think he was from India, and he popped his wife in the mouth. Now, it wasn't hard. He wasn't trying to hurt her. She was just talking. She didn't seem to be saying anything aggressive or anything like that. I don't know. And he popped her. And I was like, what the hell, man? I said, and the thing is, my wife, I looked at him. I said, he just popped his wife. And she looked as if she wasn't sure she'd been popped or not. And then my wife came into view and said, hey, Assalamu alaikum, sweetie, what happened? I said, sweetheart, get behind me. Huh? Don't me, get behind me. What's going on? God damn it. And then when she moved out the way, that man was right behind my wife. And I thought he was going to hit her too, because I didn't know this dude. I didn't know why he hit his wife. But this was an old cat. I'm sure he was older than me. No, you want to know what's really going on in India? The laws? Don't sit up and think that they got they got the women under control. No, they don't, actually. They got problems, but they don't have their women under control. In India, the laws about alimony are actually written in a sexist manner. In the States, it is the breadwinning spouse that might be on the hook for alimony, depending on how long they were married and the laws of the state. In India, it is the ex-husband that is on the hook for alimony when his wife divorces him. Divorcees, women in India will not get married again. They don't want to lose that money from the ex-husband. If she got more money or if he got more money. Remember when y'all were hearing about how, the moms in India, the mothers-in-law in India were burning their daughters in kitchens and stuff like that? Y'all remember that? Walaikum salam, Sick Dicky. I just saw yours. Y'all remember them stories? Oh, they throwing acid on their daughters-in-law, burning them in kitchens and stuff like that. And it was about the dowries, that they were doing it so they could keep the dowry that the girl's family paid to them. You know what the other reason was? Because of the way that the divorce laws are written in India, and feminism has been bad in India for a long time. Some of these mothers-in-law were watching their daughters-in-law to see, is she going to be a feminist with my son? Is she going to try to leave and take his alimony? Oh, she giving him trouble. Okay, so you know what? Yeah, let me go on ahead and close this kitchen door, throw some gas in that kitchen right quick. Yeah, that's India for you. So an Indian Muslim wants to sit up and say, well, you black people are you're so insular and you don't care about any other Muslims, and that's why you don't care about Palestine. You say to them, no, how about you fuck the shuck up, bro? Because you, Hindu or Muslim, you acted the same. You, the Muslim, acted like the Hindu. How you going to do that? They got a caste system. Islam's against the caste system. You going to turn around and act like them instead of teaching them to act like you. Man, F you. And you won't bob your head and act like you were a superior Muslim to me because your hair's straighter and because Islam been in your family thousands of years. What did you do with this religion when it reached your family? Imitate the Hindus. They want to sit up and act like we imitating the Christians. Sometimes we do, but they imitate idol worshipers, straight up statue worshipers. I'm not saying that the Indian Muslim worships the elephant god and the monkey god and a god that looks like a blue-white man. I know blue-white sounds like a contradiction, but that's powder blue, that light blue color that they have one of their gods looking like. No, Charles Irby, it's not even a Muslim caste system. It's just an Indian caste system, a Hindu caste system amongst the Muslims. They don't have an excuse. In Islam, the man pays the bride a dowry. But in India, the Muslims throw that out and the bride's family pays the groom's family a dowry. No, the dowry is what the husband offers to the wife. It's not to her family, and it ain't from his family unless they choose to help him. And that's why I don't forgive Indian Muslims for imitating Hindus. They better not say a mother cuss word thing. And they want to sit up and then, look, Abdullah, you know about this because you married an Indian woman. And even if her family didn't mistreat you, you know about how they came under pressure. If they didn't tell you, but you ask them, they'll tell you, what kind of pressure did you come under when you agreed to me marrying your daughter? Ask them about that. And they may already told you. Y'all can ask Abdullah about that. What kind of pressure did his in-laws come under to either not agree to the marriage or to change their mind once they did agree? Y'all ask Abdullah E about that. But it's not just about marriage, though. It's not just about marrying their daughters. That's why I'm sitting up here saying the stuff I'm saying. It's because of these assumptions that they take. And they call us Kale, which means black. That's a compliment if you call me that. But then they call us Bandara, which means monkeys. Yeah, they'll say that. I one time called, when I was using a little bit of Urdu, I called the group monkeys to my Indian boss at the time. I called them that because they were actually imitating baboons. They were jumping up and down and swaggering like they were imitating baboons. So I use that in a literal sense, not because of their race. They were actually imitating them. He said to me, man, why are you going to say something racist against your own? I was like, racist against my own? Bro, I'm black fist in the air. What you talking about? Look, they're actually imitating baboons. They actually came and asked my boss to make them some gold teeth with fangs in them. I said, bro, now you see what I'm talking about? That's what I meant. And then he told me that in his country, a racist would call us bandara, monkeys. I was like, oh, got it. Okay. Oh, got it. Okay. Well, I'm not okay, then never mind. I won't do that. Yeah. LOM, I heard about that. We don't, and you know what? We don't even know why that's going on there. Sociologists in the country are trying to figure out why people are doing that in the street. They don't know what's going on. 10 years ago, that wasn't happening. But about 7, you started hearing about that. The sociologists in that country don't understand it. Yeah, this is it, Abdullah. So they don't have nothing to say about us. Now, most of them do sympathize with Palestine. Most of the Desi Muslims, the Indians, the Pakistanis, and notice I'm not getting on the Bangladeshis. I don't have to get on the Bangladeshis. The Pakistanis told me that their war with Bangladesh was Pakistan's fault, not Bangladesh's. They used to call Bangladesh East Pakistan. You know what's funny, Abdullah? Jahiz in Arabic actually means ready. It just means ready. Sometimes they use it to mean screen too. But yeah, Jahiz means ready, prepared. That's the funny thing about it. But so I guess they wanted to take this Arabic word ready to try to justify the female dowry, the backwards dowry. But yeah, so all right, so most of the Desi Muslims, they do, as a matter of fact, sympathize with Palestine. And they should, to a certain extent. I get it. They turn around at times and they start saying, well, you know, black folks they want to say that we're racist because we care about ourselves. No joke, no joke. When it comes to southern India and Kalu is taken from the same root as Kali, but yeah, I guess Kalu is like saying blackie instead of just the description black. Maybe it's like that. Wa alaikum salam, C.L. Edwards. Hold on a second. Let me check something right quick. You know, so far to date, only Gala Knight has come through on the Cash App. And that was generous, Gail. I appreciate that. I didn't expect that much. But see, I don't even have to sit up and say anything about people from Bangladesh. In Bangladesh and in southern India, I actually don't have to say much about them because sometimes they may be somewhat ignorant of Western black culture, but they actually don't have a hatred. Even when they see the TV, they don't automatically believe what they see on TV. If you are black and you're going around in Bangladesh, they're going to give you a chance. They're going to give you a shot. Even if they're nervous, they will let you show them who you are. Southern India, same thing. Matter of fact, in Southern India, they actually have black populations and they say they're the originals. That actually happens. Some of you might remember my live stream back in 2020 with Torch Blaze. He moved back to India. And he told me about that. I think he's from Kerala, actually. He told me about how you had some black tribes there, and the people there knew that these were originals, and they said these are originals. And they actually tend to live not so much in the cities. In the north, you have black folks called cities, but some people that call them shidis. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to call them that. I'm not going to say that. Sounds too negative. But cities. which is related to the term Sayyid in Arabic, meaning master, even though Arabic is not the language spoken up there. Hold up, let's see. Brother Zeke said, yeah, you know the funny thing, Brother Zeke. Funny thing is, man, fact is, I myself would have considered one of them. I didn't meet a whole lot of people from Bangladesh in general, but I would have considered a woman from Bangladesh. I knew a non-Muslim cat from my neighborhood. He said that the one woman he wanted to marry was his girlfriend from Bangladesh, but and my brother was like, yeah, but you black, you can't marry, and her family was against it, huh? And he said to my brother, no, that's not what it was. It wasn't about what I am. That's not a problem with people from Bangladesh. You're thinking of Indians. This man said this to my brother years ago. He said the issue was that I'm not Muslim. And that was the issue. And I had to say to this childhood friend of mine, yeah, you shouldn't have been messing with it if you ain't Muslim. If you were, you could have just gone to the parents and asked about marriage. I would have vouched for you if you were Muslim, but I don't have a leg to stand on to vouch for you marrying a Muslim woman if you're not Muslim. It's nothing personal. Yeah, that's just the rules. She wasn't supposed to be messing with you no way. She was probably hoping she could marry you, but she couldn't. And she knew that that was the risk when she got with you. So, yeah, it's not going to happen. Oh, yeah, Abdullah E., she's from Hyderabad. That does make sense. Because they can be kind of pro-black. They can be. Actually, my boss that I worked for was from Hyderabad. Is from Hyderabad. He was kind of pro-black, actually. He knew about the Dalit Panthers and how they resisted. And as a Muslim, he respected the Dalit for resisting the high caste Hindus. So he respected the Black Panther Party, from which the Dalit Panther Party took its inspiration. And the thing is, that guy from Hyderabad told me, he said, the people from Bangladesh are very sweet and very nice. If you don't mess with them, they ain't going to start nothing with you. They're not arrogant. They're not conceited. They don't start nothing. And I asked him, so who started that war between them and Pakistan? And he said, definitely Pakistan started that war. Later on, I went to somebody from Pakistan and I asked him, who started that war? And the brother from Pakistan said to me, oh, yeah, Pakistan started that. He said Pakistan started the war with Bangladesh because they're darker and they're poorer. Bangladeshis don't start fights with anybody. And he even said, ever since they've been independent, they had no wars. They don't have any beef. So I don't have anything against them. If my wife, and I love her, but if my wife right now said to me, hey, black, thank you, bye, I'm done with you, I'd be looking in a few places. Bangladesh is one of them. And as a matter of fact, one of my relatives, I got a few relatives that have accepted Islam, a few. And one of them is now considering getting married to someone in Bangladesh. And I can't wait to tell Saudis what's going on. Grab second gear, respect blood. I can't wait to tell Saudis about that. I can't wait to say to the Saudis, hey, look, you know what? Yeah, I got a relative about to get married in Bangladesh. Because they're going to say, Bengali, why, doctor? And I'll be like, well, why not? Better hygiene, less racism, probably an easier language to learn. It sounds easier. Why not? But, it's not the arrogance. We ain't got no problem with them. It's like if we marry somebody from the Philippines, you would look down on marrying someone from the Philippines, but we black folk ain't got no problem with them. If he came to me saying he wanted to marry someone from over here and then asked me for advice, I'd have said, no, don't marry no Gulf Arab woman. They're respectful for the most part. They are, but they spoiled. Not spoiled, but spurled. with a capital R in the middle, spurled. Yep. So, yeah, I'm gonna tell all y'all, Muslim and you ain't black, and you want to ask why black folks ain't jumping up and down this time behind Palestine. It's real simple. You do have certain pockets of black folks that will. You got plenty of black Muslims that'll actually say, we are for Palestine because they're the victims, they're the oppressed. Not because we love them, but because we hate the oppressor and we hate the oppression. And we're not even supporting them so that they'll support us back. We're supporting them because it's right. You got black folks saying this. And I admire them for saying something like that. But the fact is, black folks as a whole cannot afford this because it takes sacrifice to be an ally. And we're sick and tired of being allies. And then when it's time for somebody to say something on our behalf, you know, they're a little too dark for that. Sick of that. So it's like, because of the friends that we and Palestinians have in common, we might advocate for them to a certain extent. And I'm going to let you all hear something. If I can find this right quick, give me a moment. I'm going to find something that I want you guys to hear. The volume on this is not going to be very loud. And I still only saw Gail at night for the Cash App. Ain't nobody else said nothing. Goodness. Yeah, that's true. Sick Diggy. Yeah, I don't really blame Bengalis for not saying too much about what's going on with black folk. They don't get a chance to hear about it. It's like the information can't reach them because they have so much they got to worry about going on in their own home countries. I don't even blame them. They're not doing nothing wrong or being neglectful or anything. They're not doing that. They really are overwhelmed. Just being fair, they're overwhelmed. All right, so I'm looking for this. I'm going to let you all hear something. If anybody in here speaks Arabic, the volume may not be that loud, but you know what? Never mind. I might be able to get this played on a medium that's louder. Hold on, y'all. Let's see. I know what video it is, and I just got to find the guy that has it. Yep, give me a moment. You're going to hear this.
بص على ابو جاني ولا يهمني، نقي بجنيه يلا نقي بجنيه، اللي عايز سماره وشوكولاته بجنيه. بجنيه؟ انت ماسك لهم عصايه عشان تضربهم؟ بص على ابو جاني قال له بنقي بجنيه يا جدعان، يلا نقي بجنيه يلا. لا لا يابا لا يابا يابا قول بجنيه قول بجنيه يلا.
Now, is that understands Egyptian Arabic? I don't, but I already have the translation of this. Anybody else understand Egyptian Arabic and understand what the hell that woman was saying? I can't show the video easily. I don't have that. I'm not that tech savvy yet, but I'll describe the visual to you. It was a non-black Egyptian woman holding a black baby. She was being nice to the baby for the most part. She wasn't hateful. She wasn't actually shouting at the baby, nothing like that. But before I tell you what the joke was, I'm going to ask if anybody else in here understood it and can translate. If you can, put a 1 in the chat, and I'll wait for you to type out the translation. Forgive me, I'm crunching on chips, y'all, but I'm still giving time for anybody to type in the chat on one that they know what she's saying or a translation. I'm going to give a shout out to Mr. Zeke for coming through on a Cash App from the bottom of my black heart and from the depths of my black mind. I mean that. Thank you, sir. I'm going to tell you, man, Gail at night generally does come through. I really appreciate her doing that. She does that regularly. I don't even expect it, but I appreciate that. Yeah, Sick Dicky, I haven't seen it, but coming from the Gulf Coast, which is flat and low-lying, I do know that Bangladesh has a similar topography, flat and low-lying, and a lot of it is, in fact, low-lying and prone to flooding. They got a swamp area on the border with India called the Sundarbans, the Sundarban. It's low-lying, it's swamp, it's tidal. It's like being on the coast of Mississippi or Alabama or Louisiana. So it's, and I'm pretty sure Bangladesh is humid. That's how I like it. That's how I like my weather. Matter of fact, the reason there's probably not some new wife in Bangladesh talking about I can feel it in my kidneys is because I met my current wife first. All right, so to answer your question, Sick Diggy, a child's black. Child is indubitably, unquestionably one of ours. It's not her baby as far as I can make out. The baby's a baby, the toddler, I'd say. He's only got 2 teeth in his mouth. She was saying, buy this beautiful chocolate baby for £1. A guinea is a pound in Egyptian currency. Buy this beautiful chocolate baby for a guinea, an Egyptian guinea, an Egyptian pound. Yeah, I wish I was making this up. Now, I don't speak that dialect, but someone translated it for me. This woman's not Palestinian. But there's no part of the Arab world where they unequivocally come down on a woman like this. Now, there are Arabs in every country that will come down on a woman like this. Absolutely. The problem is that the more traditional an Arab is, or the more religious they are, the less they care about racism. No joke. The Arab that is the most likely to all lives matter you when you talk about race is the very religious Arab or the traditional Arab, not necessarily that religious, but enough to be traditional. Those are the ones that break from tradition and may not even be that religious are the ones that call this stuff out. That's not all. I wish it was, but it's not. Let me see what else I can find on here. Let's see, there's there actually is another one from a lady named Susan Abu al-Hawa. Some of you might be able to find her video, but I'm going to play the soundtrack of it. Susan Abu al-Hawa. Said something about Black and Palestinian solidarity. And she was right in what she said. She absolutely was. I'm still going to go ahead and play it for this reason. I'll tell you why I'm going to play it while I'm looking for it. The reason I'm going to play this is because she's not going to lie. As far as I can make out, she's not lying. The issue is going to be how this sort of thing could have even worked. How was it even possible? If I can find it. I found something else. Peter Tosh, Equal Rights. That actually was delivered. That song was delivered and performed in support of Palestinians. That's something there. But I can't find this video. So I'm going to tell you what it is that she said then. Since I can't find it, I'll just have to tell you. The issue is Susan Abul-Hawa said that the Zionists have a narrative. And the narrative is that Palestinians don't care about the suffering in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Therefore, Black people should not care about what's going on in Palestine. And she said that this is a narrative that the Zionists have put out. It's not actual, it's not accurate. Do I think that she's on to something? Oh, hell yes. I bet money she was. Shouts out to E. Deadman for coming through on the Cash App. I mean that from the bottom of my black heart and from the depths of my black mind. I do appreciate that. And yeah, speaking of the Cash App, I was able to get a workaround. I was able to set Wise up to go into, I was able to set Wise to access my bank account in the US. So I could link that to the Cash App, my American bank account. Then I could set Wise up to go into it and withdraw from it and transfer to my Saudi account that I can use to then pay the salaries of my employees in another country. So I was able to get that workaround, and I do appreciate everything you all have done because it has gone for salary payments. And eventually, if not salary, then I may use some for the fire escape, which would then legally clear us to put a sign up to label the business. Before we can put a sign up by local law, we have to have a fire escape. So it's going to go to something like that. And the reason for that is because not only does the business counter feminism, even though that's not the actual business, but it allows us to counter feminism, to counter its growth and spread to a certain extent. But I can also use this to help one young brother at a time to repatriate or reblatriate, one at a time. There is one who's actually from the same city from which I am, and I'm going to help him out first once we can get this off the ground. Yeah, Brother Zeke, about the Wise card, I don't know about the card where I am, but I was still able to get the account. That I was able to do that fairly easily, get the account up, and I must say that I have enjoyed that. Now, it was easier when I could link that Wise account to my Cash App, but Wise turned around and changed something. Cash App didn't do anything wrong, but Wise turned around and changed the American dollars account routing and account number, and Cash App would not accept that, the new one. So I just had to put my regular American bank account routing and account number in, link that up. But Wise would still go into that one and transfer it to my to another one. Actually, you can't transfer directly from Wise to a Saudi account, but there's another transfer account I was able to use. So anyway, so what I was going to tell y'all is that Susan Abul-Hawa, yeah, I do believe what she said. I do believe that somebody came up with this idea to split up the solidarity, to break it. Here's the problem, and I want to say this mostly to those of you that, mostly to non-Black folk that are Muslim and that have something to say about Black folk. Why the hell was that effective? They don't have to sit up and lie about this. Susan Abul-Hawa, who said this, actually did write articles on the suffering going on in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. She's on to something. The issue is, why is it that this propaganda could be false and still be so effective? It's because that propaganda is not completely false. If there are lies in the propaganda, it wasn't the lies that made it effective, it was the truth. Susan Abulhawa talks about this. Most Palestinians ain't talking about it. For one, a lot of them may not know what's going on in the Congo. I don't blame them when they don't know. They don't know. But you see, you can ask even a black Palestinian, what do they say about you just in the street? Okay, they don't encounter actual hatred and violence from other Palestinians. No, they don't. The violence they encounter is from the white Zionist. I'm not even going to call them Israelis. They're not really Israelis. They're just Zionist. If they participate in the army, even if it's by draft, they're Zionist. So if you're a black Palestinian, the violence that you're going to face is from the Zionists, not from the non-black Palestinians. That's not the issue. But the thing is, when a little non-black Palestinian kid starts saying something, where do they learn it from? And when their parents stop him and say, you don't say stuff like this, they tend to say things like, do you want God to make you black like them? What? Like it's a handicap. That means they still don't get it. See, the breaking of the solidarity is not necessarily because there is no solidarity to begin with, but it is because one of us understands solidarity a hell of a lot more than the other. I'm not telling you that there's no hope of there ever being a solidarity, but that solidarity has to be, number one, twofold. It's got to be bi-directional. It's got to be mutual. Secondly, it's not really just about, can we marry Palestinian women? It's not just about that. However, it's about, do you understand equality? It's about, do you understand Palestinians? And those of you that ain't black, do you understand that that conflict over there is not just a religious conflict? It is that, but that it is also a racial conflict, and it is largely because the religion of the Zionist is a form of white supremacy. That white supremacy is a religion. Have you come to understand that? See, if we tell you the racial dimensions of even the Palestinian Zionist conflict, you're going to say, well, here you go with that race stuff. You're obsessed. No, Father Mucker, you're just stupid. You're not colorblind. You're blinded by the color of white people. And if you're a Muslim, you can't point to the Quran and show us where God told us to be colorblind or blinded by color like we are. You can only point to where he said he created us with different languages and colors, and he created us in different tribes so that we could know one another. That's how he addressed it. Yeah, I made you distinct from each other. You're supposed to know each other, and you're supposed to treat each other fairly. That's what's in there. You want to turn around and act like color doesn't matter, and you can't see color until a Negro decides to marry someone from your family. You don't see color until you think that your family's under a so-called threat, if you want to call it that, of becoming darker, as if that's even a threat. That's when, in that regard, you were just like the Zionist. You want to act like color doesn't matter. Why the hell you think them Zionists are doing what they do to you? Yep, there you go, Siddiqui. Yep, yes. That tells you everything right there. You all know when them Ethiopian Jews, the Falashas, were being airlifted to the new colony, if you will. Guess what happened? Not only did they have to serve in the military too and help oppress the Palestinians, but see, the Zionists that were waiting for them to arrive thought that a bunch of white folks were going to get off the plane. And they, the Falashas, thought that there were going to be some black folks waiting on them. They got off that plane, and when the ones who already had Israeli citizenship, I'll put it like that, at the airport saw these Negroes getting off the plane and onto the tarmac, they did not go up and welcome them like you would have thought. So the Falashas were happy and hugging each other. We're home now. And then they were treated badly, spit on, sterilized, and still had to go join the army. You know something? I actually saw it when I could not save this video. I tried. I couldn't rip it. I saw a video where a Palestinian woman said that, and she had the receipts. I saw it. A lady in Israel was talking in English, and she said that when the Black youth begin to rise up and fight back, we are in trouble. She was talking about both Black Americans rising up and fighting back in the United States, and the Black Israeli citizens rising up and fighting them because they could not fight both the Palestinians and their own Black population simultaneously. So yeah, I admit, Black and Palestinian, when I say Black, I mean internationally Black. Black and Palestinian solidarity with the right conditions could be a very dangerous thing to any oppressor. That's true. But you don't have to remind us of the equality of non-Black people. You got to remind non-Black people, you POC, of the equality of Black folks. And if that's the case, that means that even if you're not hateful and violent, it means that your religion is still white supremacy. You just don't realize it. And we Black folks, Muslim or not, can't afford a solidarity with people like that. We can see that their religion is white supremacy. We can see. Okay, Sick Dicky, thank you for telling me this. I did not know that. I was not aware that it was a slur. Thank you for telling me, because I'm not about to sit up here and slur them. I'm not going to do that. But the thing is that we can sit up and we can see, based on how they were treated, that the religion of the folks that mistreated them and that abominable Palestinians is white supremacy. See, to understand all of this, you got to know something about Zionism. I'm going to let you all that are listening right now, I'm going to let y'all in on a secret about Zionism. Y'all ready? Matter of fact, you know what? I'll let y'all in on two. I'll let y'all in on two secrets about Zionism. Number one, Zionism is not a part of Judaism. The second thing I want to tell you all about Zionism is that Zionism is older even than World War I. Zionism predates the First World War. It doesn't come after. It's not a reaction to the Second World War, and it's not a reaction to the H word that was begun by a man with a last name that starts with an H that took control of Germany, elected, and then, charismatically seized even more power. No, they weren't the ones that caused Zionism. That was just a provocation for its spread. That's all. No, actual Zionism precedes even the 1900s. It was in the late 1800s that it was conceived and called for by a few people. I forgot the name of the one that started it, but a few days I knew that guy's name. Yeah. Zionism's older than that. It's oppression. But pretty much Zionism is a way of saying, well, we are white, and even though we weren't white enough for the Gentile Europeans, we're still whiter than you Palestinians, so we're going to come and take this land. They're whiter than us, so they can kick us out of Europe, but we're whiter than you, so we can kick you out of here. Go on, go now, go on. Get from around here, N-word. That's what Zionism is. So yeah, do Black folks have an interest in opposing Zionism? you're further mucking right. If I had to choose between living under an independent Palestine and the ones that are now oppressing them and keeping them from being independent, I would choose the independent Palestine. Absolutely, I would. It's not just because I'm Muslim and they're Muslim. No, it's not so much that, it's that they're not dangerous to us. They wouldn't try to sterilize us. And some say, well, you know, during the Arab slave trade, they did cut black men's junk off. Actually, it wasn't them that did it, if you want to know the truth. Were black men castrated? Yes, they were actually castrated outside of the boundaries of the Islamic Empire. Because to do that to anybody, free or slave, inside the boundaries of the Islamic Empire, black or white, it didn't matter. If you did that inside the boundaries of the Islamic Empire, chances are you would have been beheaded for that kind of mutilation of somebody. So what you had were business people that were willing to cheat, and they may have claimed to be Muslim because they were Arab, but they weren't really serious. You know, they put the money over the Almighty, and they put the gold before God, and they put the dinar before the deen. And so, yeah, I mean, they would go into places, and they would have done it in Europe too, except they didn't castrate the Europeans that we know of. But they did when they, and they didn't do it to every African male that they took from Africa. They actually didn't do this to grown men. They did it to boys before they became grown. But a few of them would do that. A few of them, sometimes they would do this. And it wasn't just them that did it. I mean, in all honesty, you did not want to be a slave in ancient Rome, no matter what your race was. You didn't have the right to not get your butt dug out in Rome if somebody owned you. If they owned you and he liked, he liked man butt, he was Fleece Johnson, or the stereotype we have of Fleece Johnson, the image we have. If he was into you like that, too bad. So being a slave in ancient Rome was actually worse. But the point is that there were those who did it, but they weren't doing this inside of the Islamic Empire, because the Islamic Empire, with which most of us tend to associate Arab slavery of black folks, or Arab enslavement of black people, did not allow that. Yes, LOM, that's right. The Greeks were just as bad. Hell, you didn't even have to be owned by somebody to get dug out in Greece. They normalized it in Greece even more so. I want to give a shout out to 2 Trill for coming through on the Cash App from the bottom of my black heart, again, and from the depths of my black mind. Thank you, and I mean that. Somebody's salary is going to get paid nicely, I think. So, yeah, I wanted to point that out. So we black folks do have misconceptions. That is true. And I've talked about them before. But the thing about, but what I don't want to do is leave these misconceptions in place so that they can be used to justify something that is not true. I'm not even sitting up and saying, by any stretch of the imagination, that the Palestinians are enemies to black folk. It's not that. It's a question of would they be allied enough to justify the solidarity? Now, right now, it's kind of a moot point because they don't have that ability, really. I understand that. And I'm not blaming them for that. It's not their fault. They didn't do this to themselves. But there's something else. The question is, let's say they were free tomorrow. They got their own state, armies, things like that. And then we need to push back against the colonizer in our home continent because France is not willing to leave certain places on the continent from which they've been told to gracefully bow the uck fout. And the one running France now has even said, no, we're not going to leave. Y'all heard about that row with the ambassador. I bet you the ambassador, the French ambassador, I bet you he wanted to leave. I'm sure he did, but guess what? His president told him, no, stay there. He probably wanted to obey international law. He got kicked out. They didn't take him prisoner. They just said leave. He probably wanted to go back, but his president was like, we're not letting you. No, you stay there. So let's say that, the continent starts saying, look, we're going to need a little help. And maybe Haiti says, look, we're going to need some help too. We're not paying them any more of this fake debt. We don't pay because we went free. Y'all got us on this? If Palestine an independent Palestine would have said, okay, because we're a new country, we're going to help, but in order. Domino, one at a time. We've got to cross each bridge when we get to it. We'll start with our closest neighbors. Sudan, is England giving y'all any trouble? No? Y'all good? Cool. All right. Uganda, do you need a little aid, or let's say, do y'all just need a little help with a highway or something? Because we know that the UK and the US cut everything they were given to you. Now, if we help you with one infrastructure project, would that help you get to where you don't need aid? You straighten, okay, tell you what, DRC. Just going in order. Or let's say that, better yet, let's just say that the Muslims in the Central African Republic, the Muslims, because a few years ago they were getting cut up by their own neighbors. Yeah, y'all didn't know there was a religious war there. And I'm not blaming you for not knowing. There was a time I didn't know. I don't even know if it stopped or if it's still going on. I don't know. The news doesn't cover this. But let's say that it's still going on. And Palestine was like, okay, you know what? Hold up. First, let's help out CAR because of the emergency and South Africa because they were with us. As soon as they got free, Mandela was with us and had our back. So let's start with that. Let's start with you. Would they do that? Or would they say, well, we're a new country. We're a country now, and we want to make friends with Europe. That's more important. That's the question. And that's one of the biggest threats to the solidarity. And we Black folks understand that, even if it's only subconscious. We understand that. One of the ways we do know this is because in Ethiopia, when the Italians were conquering, before this happened, Marcus Garvey made his prediction. I'm not going to tell you Marcus Garvey. Bir Muhammad, assalamu alaikum, man, Askaudan. There isn't a super chat, but in the UK, Cash App works. And so my cash tag is it's going across the screen. I think in the UK, Cash App works, but I never could set up the super chat. I had a rough time trying to set it up here. Maybe I should look into it, but so when the Italians attacked Ethiopia, now, if anything, thank you, Mahat Sanad. When the Italians attacked Ethiopia, Marcus Garvey had already made a prediction. And I'm not telling you he's a prophet. I see Marcus Garvey as a man that kind of meant well, but he didn't have the discipline to go through with the religion. He actually got his ideas, he got his politics from a Muslim, a Black Egyptian Sudanese Muslim named Dusi Muhammad Ali. And Dusi Muhammad Ali actually had lived in the US for a while. And he even said Black folks could start a Black belt country in the southeastern US through armed resistance. This man was a revolutionary. Islam preceded Elijah Poole amongst Black Americans, believe it or not. You already had Sunni Black Muslim communities in Detroit and Cleveland. I met a guy who knew one of the founders of the community in Cleveland. So Elijah Poole did not start it, and then people left and became Sunni. That's not actually how it worked. And I'm not going to take any credit away from Elijah Poole for the work he actually did. I give credit where it's due. But he did not start it. Matter of fact, Elijah Poole grew up in Sandersville, Georgia. And there were some Gullah Muslims not living far from there, closer to the coast. So, Bid of Muhammad, this point is true. It's annoying, but the thing is, like I said, a lot of us we don't hear a lot of that news. There are details I don't know. Central African Republic, I can't find an update ever since 2016. Maybe I need to look in a specific place, but like just regularly, in front page, you don't find anything like that. A lot of times, man, we don't even mean any harm. We really just don't know. And I look at Palestinians and I think, there are certain things that they don't know. I'm not blaming them for what they just wouldn't know. It's like with Bangladesh, they get natural disasters they got to deal with. They may not know about what we're dealing with. There are things Palestinians may not know about. When George Floyd went down, they were starving because of the blockade and they were still marching. I want Palestinians to get their credit. But it shouldn't have taken one man's death to be recorded for that. We've been telling them for the longest, man, these white folk over here stepping on that, got their foot on our neck too. Used to burn us alive and hang us from trees before they got started on y'all. And they'd be like, but, no, what you mean, but, ninja? But nothing. Yeah, Jay Lion, I would have dropped it, but I'm overdue to leave, actually. I was supposed to bounce a while ago, and it's late here. That's why I didn't open it up. But probably on a Saturday would have been better. It's just that I wasn't able to do that yesterday. I had to go somewhere. At the same time that, around this time of day. So, yeah. Marcus Garvey made this prediction before the Italian invasion of Ethiopia. He said, look to the east for the crowning of a black king, and he would be your redemption and your salvation, or something along those lines. Selassie stood up to the Italian army. And first, he told the UN what was going on. And as a matter of fact, part of his speech is played in the intro and in the outro to Damian Jr. Gong Marley's song, Confrontation. The name of that song is Confrontation. It's hard hitting. And in the beginning of it and towards the end, there are clips of Haile Selassie making a speech in Amharic addressing the UN. It was at that time called the League of Nations. That's right, Lion. He complained in that speech to the UN about what was going on. He said, yep, today is us and tomorrow will be you. That's right, Bin Muhammad. And that was because the sanctions against Italy were not actually enforced. They kind of just got a slap on the wrist for what they were doing, because even though Ethiopia was a member of the League of Nations, Ethiopia was a black member of the League of Nations. Now understand, people said, okay, this is the prediction that Garvey made. A bunch of black Americans went and signed up to go and volunteer to help Ethiopia repel the Italians. We didn't know that. Ethiopians didn't know that. Neither one of us was really told about this in history. I don't blame Ethiopians for not knowing that a bunch of us went and volunteered to fight. And I don't blame a bunch of us for not knowing about this. This was not taught in history. But this was some of the first time that black folks from America went somewhere to pick up guns to fight for black folk against Europeans. When Garvey and a contingent of his went to the UK or England at that time to meet Selassie, Selassie landed. And when he landed, there were two delegations, Garvey's black delegation and a white delegation, I think, from the UK that wanted to meet with him. Selassie met, of course, with the white ones. Now, for one, I think he knew about them and was going to meet them, and it was prearranged. I think that might have been the case. Either way it goes, Garvey found out about this, and Garvey said, this is not the man I predicted. That's what Garvey said. He said, for one, this man ran. Now, really, Selassie was going to set up an alliance, and he did go back and help shoot down some of the Italian fighter jets. But at the time, Garvey said, this is not the man I predicted. And that's true. I'm telling you all about this Largely because, frankly, we have had a type of we've had a type of solidarity when people get oppressed. We have had that. But in all honesty, Garvey was trying to make a prediction, and he was not a prophet. An entire idea, an entire belief system came about based on the prophecy or the prediction of Marcus, not the prophecy, but based on a prediction of Marcus Garvey that he later recanted. Garvey was getting into arguments with W.E.B. Du Bois, and they were going at each other and making fun of each other's appearances based on the amount of black blood each one had. W.E.B. Du Bois being half Dutch, Garvey bragging about being 100% African. He called Du Bois an unfortunate mulatto. Someone said one time, I don't know if it's true, but someone said once that Du Bois resorted to calling Garvey a black ape. If that's not true, then I'm glad that it's not. I heard it. I couldn't verify it or disprove it. You know what wound up being the case, though? Because of this, there were many black folk who began to really distrust anybody black with non-black ancestry, any admixtures. I don't think that while some of that is in fact a type of paranoia, it's not unfounded. And we can't necessarily afford alliances with people that are going to turn around and further that problem. Frankly, I can't afford for us to ally ourselves with that. I can't afford for us to sit up and decide we're going to be allies to someone that's going to turn around as soon as they have to choose between diplomacy with other colonizers and diplomacy with former victims of colonization or even modern day victims. And they're going to feel pressure or something pulling them to go and form the diplomacy and the alliances with the colonizers. I can't afford that, because every time something like this happens, I'm trusted less and less and less. So I know what the backlash is. I know what winds up happening. My wife, because she's East African, has faced some of this backlash, and it was stupid. It wasn't anything that brothers did. It was some American sisters, but they started comparing her to a white girl. She ain't even light skinned. They started comparing her to a white chick. This is years before I met her. Some of this black anoia is really just some of the Sapphire's colorism obsession. Some of it is. Matter of fact, a good bit of it is. I've already addressed that. I'm talking about the portion that is not. I'm talking about the portion, although the problem is that when other groups do decide that they're going to take our help and not render it the same solidarity in exchange, it feeds into the black anoia that then later on feeds the colorism obsession that some of the Sapphires have. There really are some of our people who believe that they can tell your loyalty and your solidarity with your own kind based on things like not only your melanin count, but things as incidental as the tightness of the curl in your hair or the width of your nose. There really are some of us who believes dumb stuff like that. And they ain't just ladies. There's some of them in the UK and in the States. And they really believe that they can look and they can tell, okay, he's not going to be loyal to us. he's not dark enough. One day he's going to say something racist. His nose ain't wide enough. He's going to say something racist one day. His lips are thin. Or, I didn't say and, just or. His hair is not tightly curled enough, or hers for that matter. And what's the reason? Because every single time, I shouldn't say every single time, it's not every time, but most of the time when we show solidarity with someone that ain't us, you other POC, we don't get it back. The exceptions are pretty much like I've stated. A few Southern Indians, people from Bangladesh, although we each tend to be more concerned with our own issues and don't know about each other's, we don't tend to have these grudges. Southeast Asians, they don't act coldly towards us and arrogantly. To answer your question, Silk Diggy, my wife is Somali, actually. She's from the Dubahante people that fought the British. So this does wind up happening. And then, we start getting obsessed with it. And I'm not going to front. It's not only in the States that you got sisters who think they can determine your behavior based on phenotype. It's not only in the States that happens. I've seen a very nice lady, Jamaican lady. I was there when she looked at my daughter and said, I can see her personality coming out. And then she proceeded to comment on my daughter's looks. Not in a bad way, but she was relating things like her shade and her hair to a personality. What the F, man? What was she talking about? I didn't get it. But she really believed it. She was from Jamaica. I didn't understand why she would think so. And then I had to stop and I had to start thinking about, you know what? Yeah, maybe it's just not an American thing only. And not only that, but I remember that actually jarred my memory that some Liberian women had said something years before that about how I might actually behave by looking at me. And guess who was the first I heard? First I heard to say something about that were, of course, American sisters. But I got to be honest. Unfortunately, this does get to be a problem. Their sisters do start thinking, you know what, we can tell how so-and-so is going to behave by looking. And that's because in a lot of countries, that's expected. And it's also because, frankly, when you have groups of people that aren't Black and don't count themselves as Black, and they benefit from our solidarity with them, even if it's a little bit, they tend to not return the favor because they don't understand. Of course, the exceptions being who I just previously mentioned: Southeast Asians, Bengalis, some Southern Indians. But generally speaking, when you POC that love to have something to say about Black folks, but you still want our solidarity, have to understand you've already established this history. And this has trained some of our more ignorant members to think this way, but they actually have a leg to stand on. So that's what I meant when I said that the Zionists, who do have an agenda to split Black and Palestinian solidarity, aren't winning because of the lies they tell. They're winning because of the truths they tell. And these truths are not things we are making true. We're not giving them ammunition for this. They're not going to Palestinians. They can't go to you and say, well, Black folks sold you out. They can't do that. They have to come to us and say, they're still calling you slaves. That's where they have a leg to stand on. That's the ammunition, and that's not ammunition we gave them. And that tells us, you know what? You can look at somebody and you can tell how they're going to be. Then we start thinking that. Question: upon divine guidance or Assalamu alaikum, brother. When you said, "Am I wrong?" I'm not sure what this is. I'm not sure to what this is in reference. I was scrolling up to see what else you said before, and I couldn't see what else you mentioned, neither in StreamYard nor in YouTube. So I'd have to ask you to what you're referring when you say, "Am I wrong?" I'm sorry for not knowing. I just, when I scrolled up, whatever you typed before didn't come through. So no harm meant. I just really don't know. But this does get to be an issue when people start. I mean, even though it's ignorant, you have actually more and more of us, men and women, that are beginning to believe. You know what? Yeah, I can look at somebody and I can tell how they're going to behave. I can look at someone and I can tell how much solidarity they're going to have and how biased they're going to be towards us or against us by looking. I dealt with this 2022 when I performed Hajj. I was really distrusted. The ones who spoke English, it was different. But if they spoke another language, no English, we couldn't relate. It wasn't because of the language barrier. They didn't trust me. They weren't doing this with everybody. It's Hajj. It's not how you operate. Black folk did not trust anybody else because apparently they've been seeing this across the board. This right here, Bitter Mahmoud, I can tell you this, man. Honestly, bro, I know where it comes from. But I don't understand how it is that Muslims didn't figure this out earlier and catch that. That I don't understand. How did Muslims not catch where this comes from? Who has the motive and the ability? Who has the motive to hate black folks and the ability to whisper in everybody's ears the hatred of black people? Who can do that? Who has the motive and the ability, Bitter Mahmoud? Now, Sick Diggy, I thought about this too at one point, but that wasn't it, man. No, they weren't doing this across the board. I mean, the guy from Mali, whose bed was actually next to my bed, he wouldn't stay with the group. He would not stay with our group at all. He thought he was the only black person there. He didn't know that actually I was too. He didn't speak English, so I couldn't tell him. But when he saw the black Saudi, he was waving at him, "Hey, Assalamu alaikum." Now, he didn't speak Arabic and the black Saudi didn't speak French, but he's just waving. Now, it turned out that the particular black Saudi he saw was actually a Soninke origin black Saudi. But that Soninke, the guy, the guy that was shunning me at first, and all I was trying to do was tell him he snored too damn loud. I didn't mean any harm. I was just trying to tell him. But he didn't want to talk. It turns out he spoke Bambara, not Soninke. The black Saudi spoke English, Arabic, and Soninke. They didn't have a common language. It was the method to talk, and they trusted each other. That man did not trust me. He was standoffish. He wasn't mean or hostile, nothing like that. But when he did have to sit with us, with his own group, he was just silent and standoffish. I guess he thought we meant some kind of harm or something. But in all honesty, finally, when his phone broke on him, not broke, but it froze or something, and he had to show me the phone, he was like, "Can you understand this?" I said, "Man, this is in French. You told me you speak French." Turns out he couldn't read French. Because of my Spanish, I was able to understand what was there. And I said, "You're going to have to press this option right there." I pressed it, his phone came unlocked. Then I saw the country code on his phone, and I looked on my phone and found out it was Mali. I said, "Hey, man, You from Mali? What language do you speak? And then he said, Bambara. So I told him, and I had to say this real slow in Spanish so he could kind of get it. Then I translated it into French, and I just poorly read it out in French because I can't read French, like I can't pronounce it that well. But I translated it on my phone into French and told the man, the Bambara are one of my mother's ancestral tribes. Creoles actually come out of Senegal, Gambia, and Mali. The primary ancestries are the Wolof, the Mandinka, and the Bambara. I mean, there are other ancestries in there like the Soninke, but the primary were the Wolof, Mandinka, and Bambara. I had to tell him this. He got his son on the phone who could talk to me in English and Arabic. His son said, my dad says, thank you. And I said to the son, you're welcome, man. You know, tell Pops that he's welcome. And let Dad know he can ask for help. I mean, he's going to have to come with a language we can understand. He may have to translate, but he's welcome to ask for help. But he's got to, you know, he has to let us talk to him if he needs any help. I know what it was. At first, I wasn't sure, but I figured out what it was. It was clear as day after a while. I'm not the only one that's dealt with this before. A lot of Black folks are going through this from many different nationalities. It's Blackanoia. And while Blackanoia, walaikum salam, Tika Harding, even though Blackanoia is in fact a problem and it's an overreaction and it's not accurate, the fact remains that Blackanoia is not something we Black folks are making up. Blackanoia is real. We may be overreacting in our Blackanoia, but we're not just pulling it out of our behinds. And yeah, most folks, not everybody, but most folks that ain't Black, we don't even have Blackanoia just because of Europeans. We've long ago stopped expecting any better for them. But other groups of color started to really feed the Blackanoia. The thing is that the ones who now demand our solidarity the most and who are Muslim, who should have been the first ones to not provoke Blackanoia, joined everybody else in doing it. And it turns out they've been doing it for hundreds of years. And I ain't gonna lie to you. I found out that actually one of the first people in the entire Muslim world to enslave Black people based on being Black was a Black king. I think his name was Ismail Lufi or Lofi, I think. Maybe Ismail was his surname. I can't remember, but he was a Black king of Morocco a long time ago, hundreds of years ago. I think maybe in the 1300s. I'm probably wrong about the century. But yeah, he was either the first or one of the first. He was half Black, and he enslaved the Black men in Morocco across the board. He did that. Black slave on African soil. The Caucasian is for the mucker. And it's against the rules. You can't enslave a free person in Islam, except for you take him as a captive of war. He did it on account of race. Man was half Black and he did this. So that only fuels further the Blackanoia that many of us have towards anyone that's either of admixture or just another non-Black POC. So I'm going to say this. If you're not Black and you're Palestinian or pro-Palestinian, understand this. Yeah, what Palestine has to face because of these colonizer settlers is wrong. But before you can come and ask us for anything, you got some work to do. A lot of work to do. You're going to have to tell your own people, even though you're not violent, even though you're not hateful to us, even though you're not doing to us what the KKK and race soldiers in the Western countries, now ain't just the US, but in the West in general, are doing to us Black folks, The fact is that you speak the same language. You still call us slaves. They enslaved us based on race. You say, well, they have an evil color. They turn around and kill us because of the color. Yeah. You got some serious house cleaning to do before you can ask us for a further mucking thing. You're lucky that there's still black folks, Muslim and not, that are willing to stand up for you simply because it's the right thing to do. And I mean vocally. Most of us have hearts that go out to you. Omar Ungawa Johnson, who because of your Arab racism, your anti-blackness, your Indian anti-blackness, your Pakistani anti-blackness, your Aryan Afghan anti-blackness, even Omar Ungawa Johnson, who we can't even call a Muslim to a certain extent. But even he said, yeah, my hearts go out to you. I want you to be safe, but I can't afford to care. Not our fight. It's not something we can afford to get into because you don't feel a guck about us. He calls you Arabs. He doesn't even call you Arabs. Arabs. And I don't have a leg to stand on to defend you from him. As whack as that man is, I still can't stand. If I want to defend you from him, ain't nothing I can say because you know what? He's on to something. Yeah. When you go to the United States, from whence he comes, what do? Most of you sell something you're not allowed to sell. The bulk of you do this. And I know when you go to the States or Canada, it's easy to go into the gas station business. Easy. But then in order to make it, you got to sell alcohol. You got to sell cigarettes. You have to sell pornography. Don't tell me these things are legal. They're forbidden. Even cigarettes. And you go into these things and you don't even stop and look at the system that's white supremacist. You don't even look at the system that you sit up and think, well, I can only afford to go into this business and I can only open up this business in this area. You still don't seem to understand that was by design. It was set up like that so that you would be the middleman in between us and Massa. You think you're Massa the whole time because you ain't Massa. He's using you as the middleman, the buffer zone, the buffer class. You go ahead and funnel these vices into the community there. You help us keep them down, and if you do it long enough, we'll promote you, let you make a little more money, and then you can move into a nicer home that you'll actually own, or actually, no, you won't own. No, we're not going to let you do that. You're still going to have a mortgage. But you get to move into a nicer neighborhood next to us. But don't tell your kids not to fight back when my kids call yours the N-word. Because you're going to be the closest thing to an N-word in this neighborhood to which we're promoting. Your hair's still a little too nappy. Yeah. You don't even question that system. And when we tell you that it was set up like that, and your kids get sick and tired of trying to hold on to their pride and their identity against a consistent onslaught for which they have no resistance because you didn't bother to tell them and you didn't bother to ask us. And then they start changing their names to Spanish language names and leaving Islam if you were Muslim to begin with. Then you don't know what to do. And maybe if you've been through enough at the hands of Massa, you start running to the NAACP. Brother, we are people of color. Help me. Now we're looking at you like, no, man, shuck that fit. We're people of color. No, we're black. You're a person of color. I heard what you called me. Brother, we're all slaves of Allah. Yeah, we're all also supposed to be terrorists against the shaitan. You ain't terrorized one devil since you got here, and you don't like it when anybody calls you the terrorist. So fuck the shuck up. You're on your own. Hold your own nuts. And most of us don't like saying this. So to you non-black POC, especially those of you that are Muslim, I'm going to let you know. We don't like saying stuff like this to you. But what choice did you leave us? You didn't leave us any choice. There was nothing else we could have said. Not if we wanted to not waste our time and resources and effort. We already know. We can't help you dig your way out because you ain't going to turn around and throw a rope back to help us dig our way out. Instead of doing that, you're going to be like, well, I mean, we help you. We can give you a boost out of the ditch, out of a hole. So you don't have to climb up the sides and get all the dirt and the mud on your clothes and everything else. You don't throw a rope back over for us. So if we try to climb out and we get some of the dirt on our clothes, you standing up at the lip of the ditch, you got dirt on your clothes? Yeah, Father Mucker, I just got out. I just got out, man. Give me time to get a house and a washing machine and some new clothes. Brother, you can't come with us like this. Oh, man. And then you want to tell us when we do understand what religion is, the truth, you want to tell us that we're not serious enough about it. No, you're not serious enough about it. If you were, you wouldn't be sitting up here and making a cultural preference out of marrying so as to resemble your oppressor as much as possible. Don't say it's a personal preference. It's not personal. When you all seek to marry as white as possible, even within your groups, that's not a cultural preference. I mean, that's not a personal preference. It's cultural because it's not a person that has it. It's the culture. And you won't stand up against that. You're obsessed with literally breeding yourselves to favor the colonizer as much as possible. And most of you individually don't have that obsession, but you understand that your culture does, so most of you don't want to go against it. So yeah, when you lose the support of black folk, which you're already beginning to, I'm going to tell you the same thing that I tell the sapphires from amongst our people when they lose the preference of brothers and we won't marry them anymore. Repeat after me. It's our goddamn fault, not theirs. Don't come to us. No, go back to your people and talk to them. The next time, some of you who do mean well are going to hear conversations in which some of the elders are going to say, well, maybe we should link up with such and such a group. Just go ahead and tell them, no, we can't go asking them. We burn that bridge. What do you mean we burn that bridge? No. They know what we call them. What? Now, see, a lot of you youngsters, I credit you because you don't follow the BS of the elder generation. But you're going to have to get the nuts to say to them, no, don't ask them because they know what you said. And when they say, well, what did we say? You call them slaves. They know you racist. Oh, we're not racist. Yeah, you are. You're not violent. You're not hateful, but you're racist. What insult do you have for white people just because they're white? I'll wait. Now, what insults do you have for black people just because they're black? You won't have to wait. Even though there are answers to both, which one can they answer without thinking? That tells you everything. And that's what you say to them. How long did it take you to answer the question about what insults do we have for black folks because they're black? Seconds. How long did it take you to think of insults we have for whites for being white? If it exists amongst your people, more seconds. And that's the difference. If you were from Pakistan, I'm going to say it straight like this. I'm going to bring the marriage up, not because I want to marry Pakistani women. I'm going to bring it up for this reason, because you think that you shouldn't have to. So I'm going to hit you where it hurts. Because y'all are very nationalistic. And when black folks become nationalistic out of necessity, haram, you can't do that. No, fuck the shuck up. We can. We have to. You won't give us a choice. Here's the deal. So let's talk about marriage, just because you don't like it. Your sister comes home and says she wants to get married. You and mom and dad say, well, when do we meet him? Well, before you meet him, I need to tell you, he's not from Pakistan. What the hell? Where's he from then? He's from here. He's from the States or from the UK. Well, at least tell us he's not black. I don't even have to ask. I already know. I know because when I worked at a Muslim school, I asked my colleague, a teacher from Pakistan, I asked her, if somebody from your community goes home and tells a family that she wants to get married and the man is not from Pakistan, what ethnicity do you hope to God that he is not from if he's not going to be from Pakistan? She didn't know I was black. And that's why I asked her. She said, African American. And we at least hope he's not African American. And I told her, exactly. This is why we call y'all racist. And that's when she found out I was African American. I told her. I said to her, the truth be told. And the reason is because I was telling them about how it was that whites who accept Islam don't have a problem with them being Pakistani. They have a problem with them being racist. Because at that time, this is in 2010, we had this conversation. Whites who accepted Islam back then, there was no right at that point. When they accepted, they really accepted. You can ask any Muslim in my audience right now about whites who accepted Islam back then. The people would kick them out. You know how white folks do when one of their own becomes Muslim. Their families would disown them. The people would kick them out. If they still lived in white areas, they had their cars scratched up, vandalism, people spray painting the T word on their property. It was bad. They really went through it. So I was saying to her, look, this is what's happening. When you see, like, the new white guy comes in and he's Muslim. I think she thought I was Hispanic, actually. So I told her, when you see the new white guy come in and he's Muslim, or you see the new white sister come in and, she's Muslim. At first, they're going to eat your food, learn some of your language, like it's Arabic or something, maybe wear some of your clothes. But the thing is, they ain't racist. If they were, they wouldn't be willing to come into this faith. Then they find out that you've got these anti-black sentiments, these anti-black ideas, and that's when they don't like you. They left their people, and you trying to kiss up to the same people that cast them out for being Muslim. They with us. We get along with them. And then we see y'all trying to kiss up to white folk. That's why they turn against y'all after a while. Same reason we can't stand y'all. I let her know we can't stand them. I told her, I'm not going to sit up and tell you that we're not dysfunctional. The thing is, black folk know we got dysfunction. We know that. We can discuss it and try to get around it. Y'all act like your dysfunction is a part of Islam and we need to just go ahead and accept it. You ask a black Muslim if he breaks his fast with a cigarette, he'll tell you, yeah, I need to quit smoking. It's wrong. You go to the Arab or the Pakistani, he's breaking his fast with a cigarette after the sunset during Ramadan. The Mu'adhin got 3 syllables out. Allahu, he got the cigarette lit up. You smelling smoke. Coughing. You about to drink the water and eat the date. He up there lighting a cigarette. That's what he needs first. He'll act like, oh, it's my crew. It's not really haram. No, father mucker, it's suicide. It's forbidden. I'm like, what the F, man? That's the difference between us and y'all. I had to let her know. And she even said, well, you sound kind of hurt like somebody that wanted to marry a Pakistani one day. And I was like, no, that's not what it is. I'm not really hurt that we can't marry y'all. I'm hurt that you all are willing to sit up here and do your best to marry as much, to breed yourselves to become the same colonizers, oppressors. Like you're in a race to replace them. I never wanted to marry one of y'all. I don't eat raw onions and garlic. At the same job, a Tunisian sister, nice lady too, looked out for me, straight up. Got into a debate with me one day about Moses, alayhi salam. I told her Moses was black. Line of MGTOW, you're right, can't smoke, can't drink. And a lot of Muslims smoke. Now, it ain't a whole lot of Muslims doing bachabazi and, booty banditry. That's not a lot. It's rare. It's just that I don't think we're stamping it out enough, to be fair. But no, a lot smoke. A lot of my students smoke. Yeah, C.L. Edwards. You know what happened, C.L. Edwards? I saw some of that stuff, man. You might remember this video of this white dude with a sword. He rushed into a crowd of black folk. They beat him, but they didn't kill him. You know, there was some Arab guy that took a clip of it. They just showed the black folk beating up on him. Just that clip. He was spreading it around saying these Zanuj, which is another way to say the N-word, they killed this white guy because he's white. Arab guy said this. Another Arab saw that clip, sent it to me and said, hey, man, is this true black? And I was like, I don't know. Let me see. So I looked it up and found the whole clip. I sent it back to him. And I said, whoever that father muck is that said that they killed him because he's white needs to die. They beat him because he had a sword in his hand and he rushed into a crowd of black folks to try to play hero. He must have been crazy. They don't usually do that. Calling broke, whoever it was, man, C.L. Edwards, the Arabs called them animals, called them terrorists. They can say it's not an issue, it's a kuffar issue. I mean, granted, to a certain extent, it is an issue for the non-Muslims, yeah, but it's an issue of oppression. I mean, you got Christian Palestinians. Palestine is not exactly the model Islamic caliphate, so the question becomes, is it wrong, period, or is it not? And they have to answer that. There was a Somali guy that C.L. Edwards, to be honest with you, there was a Somali guy sitting in his car saying, Wallahi, billahi, talahi, when I wipe my hand over my socks to make wudu, that means more to me than Black Lives Matter. Okay, he's talking about a part of the religion. You got to wash up before you pray. Fair enough. But he was trying to intentionally take something that's important and use that to diminutize the importance of not being oppressed. And honestly, he was lying. Not because he told a direct lie, but because he was trying to associate his religion with the diminutization of black folks' rights and concerns. That's what a lie was. And he was Somali. Bro, the way the Somalis ripped into this dude, they went in on this cat. Like, see, what you doing, you just being a coward and you trying to hide behind your religion. No, nigga, you just a coward. They went in on him. My wife was like, oh, them cops gonna beat him because he ain't gonna have nobody to help and support him. They could beat this dude, nobody cares. We wouldn't care. What's going on, Bilal of the features? Assalamu alaikum, brother. I'm sorry, wa alaikum salam. And I'm glad. Thank you for showing support on the lunch break. Yeah, man, I ain't gonna lie, bro. They've been helpful today. I do appreciate that. And I had to mention you earlier, sir, because you covered the HIs in Chicago that was so out of. I mean, it was so out of it, bro. That the HIs that I know are like, what the F, man? What's wrong with these dudes? Y'all, but all of the features covered the ones who were they were actually they were saying death to Allah. A lot of the HIs in the States would have looked at that and said, what the hell, man? They were actually saying that they envied the Israelis because they got to decapitate babies. This is something most people of any faith would not say, including their own. Now, to answer your question, well, you know what? Upon divine guidance in the caliphate, that's what it is. But see, the thing is, even in the caliphate, it's not okay to oppress the people of other faiths. But when you start looking at the Zionist country, they're like, no, we're going to oppress everybody. If you got a different color or religion, you inferior. They don't understand equality. We can understand at least not oppressing people, even if you feel like you're better than them. So about this Tika Harding, I actually asked them about it since my wife is, and my wife was like, "Oh, we know that we're actually black racially, but when we're speaking," she said, "when we're speaking English, we understand that a lot of times black means Black American, and we have a different heritage." And so I kind of understood it. I understood what she meant, because a lot of them, they don't have this idea that they're a different race. They just understand that they're not Black American or even West African for that matter. Even in the UK, someone will be like, I mean, yeah, we're black, but we're not Jamaican black. They may say it like that. If that's what they mean, I get it. I mean, I'm African, but I'm not East African. I'm West African, Central African, diasporan. I get it. If that's what they mean. Now, if they want to say like, no, we're a different race, we're not even originally from Africa, that's why I get on their ass. No mercy. None. And this Bir Mahmoud, this is true. They don't care. A racist does not care about nationality. They care about, are you black? Are you white? Where are you in between them if you're neither one? That's what they care about. And they go by hair texture, melanin count, width of the nose. They go by these things. And any one of them is enough to make you an N-word to them. That's how the racists work. So that's why I'm not willing to I'm willing to distinguish between different groups of black folk, but that's why I'm not willing to sit up here and actually fight with other black folks when they're not looking for a fight. We have distinctions, but I'm not willing to turn the distinction into a division, because I see who the common enemy is. And like you said, these were Afghans. Who the hell are these Afghans to say anything? They don't care. Matter of fact, the Afghans have a word for all black people. It's something like jucky, something like that. It's the superlative of the word ugly. My Afghan colleague told me about that. And I asked him, so what groups of this is this used for? Like which nationality is a black folk? And he said, it's black. It doesn't matter. Yeah. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to have some for them too. Just understand it ain't personal. And he understood. He said, yeah. But you know, the same Afghan guy that told me that, he wanted to marry a Somali woman one time, and he told me that her dad was racist. And I said, no, bro. Her dad wasn't racist. And he proceeded to tell me why her dad was like, no. The Afghan guy that told me this speaks Farsi. His father actually studied in Iran and was beaten up by some of the Iranians for being black. And of course, when they fought him, they were talking to him in Farsi. So he has a trauma response to the sound of the Farsi language being spoken. And then years later, his daughter comes home and says, I want to marry this Afghan Farsi speaker. I told him the dad is traumatized. It's wrong for him to do this to you, yeah. But understand this, bro. Don't call the dad a racist. The dad is reacting against the racism that people who speak your same language did to him. And see, I told you all how when I lived in my last city, I met the brothers from Nigeria. The Fulani and the Hausa brothers. Most of them speak in Hausa. I told you how I met them before I went to Riyadh. I was glad I met them. I was like, finally, some black folk. Like real black folk. And they know they're black. Because, I mean, you know, look at the name Nigeria. Yeah, it's just like Kemet or Abyssinia. It's named for blackness. Or Sudan. These countries are named for their blackness. Niger, same thing. It's a name that comes out of blackness. These countries were named for the blackness of the people in different languages. So when I met these Nigerians, I was like, yeah, man, it's great. Bruh, the Nigerians told me, especially the one to whom I'm the closest, he said to me that there was a time when the Iranians were going into Nigeria and they wanted to spread Shiaism, which actually does have a lot of racism in it. It's something else. And some of the first racist literature ever written in Arabic was written by Persian Shias. That's real. Even though it was in Arabic. Some of it wasn't even written in Arabic. It was written in Farsi. And we start reading in the history books, well, this Arab said this and so said that. And you don't even know that there's actually specifically a Shia who spoke Farsi that wrote this. Arabs didn't start that stuff. I'm not letting them off the hook for their part in it, but they didn't start it. No, they ain't started. Remember, the Arabs used to be black at one point. One of my own students said that. They used to be black. So I can't sit up and tell you they started it. I already told y'all. The Afghan guy told me that the Aryan people on both sides of today's border between Iran and Afghanistan started color prejudice as far as anybody could trace it. First, they were materialistic because they made the best furniture and the best homes. Then they started to discriminate on the basis of color because they were paler than other people. That's how it started. Yeah. So, straight like this, the Afghan guy, the Nigerian guy told me that when the Iranians were going into Nigeria in the 70s, I think he said 70s and 80s, and they were offering scholarships to study in Iran. Some of the students took it. He said they did not finish. The government was offering them scholarships to study at these universities, but when they went over there, the actual students and professors would not treat them equal. They had to have their own seats because nobody else could sit in the seats after a Negro sat in them. Yeah. So what does that tell y'all? I was like, man, look, you know what? Yeah, I was ticked off when I heard that. But later on, I had to tell the guy from Afghanistan, bro, that's what they told me. So if you had a Somali woman that you wanted to marry and her dad was traumatized by the sound of the Farsi language, you got off the hook lightly. Because maybe one day, you know, maybe at the wedding or something, he meets your family, they speak in Farsi in front of him and he has a flashback. That what you want? No. Tell your people that we're better than them, not because we're black and they're not, but because we're not racist and they are. And even he, with his consciousness, said, I can't really say that, but it is wrong to be racist. It's like, no, bro. I know you, okay, I get it. You don't want to sit up and admit that your people are inferior. Not because they're not black, but because they're racist. But if you're not racist, then you're not inferior. I had to tell them this. And I'm going to say this to those of you that ain't black, people of color, but you got stuff to talk. I'm going to say this to y'all. Black people are not superior to you because we're born black. And you're not. We're not inferior to you because of that. We are better than you are because when you insult us for things we didn't do, you give us your good deeds. If you backbite anybody, you give them your good deeds. That's just the rule. I'm not backbiting you. I'm telling you now. If you're listening to this, I'm saying directly to you. Even if you individually are equal, and you might be, your people are not equal to us because you can't stop backbiting us and you have nothing to say about the oppressors. Except stop oppressing us. We've come along. We haven't done anything. All we want to do is love on people, even more than we love ourselves, and y'all start backbiting us. Yeah, you're giving us your good deeds. That's where we become superior, and I don't apologize for saying it. I didn't stutter, I didn't blink, and I didn't skip a beat. Collectively, we are better than you are because of the choice you made that made you inferior. You're back big. And you sided with oppressors against the ones they oppressed. I don't mean individually you, but collective you, the plural you, which doesn't have its own pronoun in English. Sorry. Antum. How about that? Y'all did that. Now, there have been people who ain't black, ain't white, but they also ain't Muslim, and we really didn't expect much from them either. I mean, we kind of had to learn our lesson with the Hindus. Okay, all right, you got a caste system, white folks on top, but you know what? You think one god is an elephant, the other one's a monkey, and the other one is a powder baby blue deity. So, what do you know? Yeah, of course. Because to you, the divine can be anything but black. So we kind of learned a lesson there too. Right? You ain't nothing but a statue worshiper anyway. But then those of you that were Muslim came along and you didn't behave any better. So yeah, you can sit up and tell us that what some folks are going through, like what the Palestinians are experiencing, is wrong. You can tell us that. You're right. That's wrong. But you know what? The way you backbite even people from your own that are darker, let alone actual black folks, the way you backbite, man, look, you already given the good deeds. The only good deeds you might have are the patience that you show with the oppression that we don't even want you to experience. And we don't. I don't want y'all to experience that, even if it's because, even in spite of your backbiting. But the beatdowns, the bombs, no, buildings falling on, I absolutely don't want y'all to experience this from the oppressors. But, some fist fights, a few ass whoopings, caved in chest, even a few kicks to your testes. Yeah, I want y'all to experience something like that. I just don't like the fact that it's people that are more racist than you that are the ones doing it to you, and then worse. I'm not going to sit up here and tell you, well, maybe God sent them to you to punish you for your bad deeds. I'm not going to say that to you for one reason. Your bad deeds are not the reason they're doing it. It might be the reason that your prayers are unanswered for relief. Maybe, maybe not. Probably is. But the ones coming along and oppressing you are not doing it because of the bad deeds you did. They'll do it to you no matter what. But the fact is, you have still made yourselves inferior to the people you backbite because you backbit them and it had nothing to do with anything they had done. And don't say to me that it's because of the dysfunction of the Black American culture. You say things about Black Palestinians. You say things about Black Libyans. You talk about Black Egyptians. You talk about Black Saudis, Black Kuwaitis, Black Emiratis, Black Jordanians, Black Turks, even though they're not Arab. You have a history. Despite the fact that the first Arabs were Black, you got a history of talking bad about Blackness because it's Black. Long before there was an America, you had cash crap to talk about Black folks. When the Arabs went into North Africa, hey, y'all want to know how the Muslims lost Spain, y'all? Y'all want a history lesson about that? Muslims got Spain because they fought as a unit. And they were actually going in by invitation. People don't talk about this. There were some folks in Spain that were being religiously persecuted. A group of Christians were being religiously persecuted by other Christians, just like what happened in Egypt. The Muslims went into both of those places because they've been asked to. Some folks were being oppressed, and they wanted the Muslims to rule even-handedly. When the Muslim army got to the Pyrenees Mountains, not only did they have to face the mountains, but they were arguing with each other by this time because the Arabs could not treat the Berbers evenly. No, it wasn't the North Africans that were the problem. It was Arabs. They started that. Even in North Africa, before they got to Spain, they had already taxed the Berbers, and they didn't tax the Arabs the same way. And when the Berbers revolted because they were being unfairly taxed, the Arabs in charge didn't have the good sense to say, well, you know, they're only doing it because we treated them unfairly. No, what did they do? They called in for Arab reinforcements from the Levant and put down the Berber rebellions. The Berbers were right and the Arabs were wrong. They had no business fighting back against the Berbers in the first place. They were wrong for the extra taxes. The Berbers said, we ain't paying the taxes and we ain't going to jail for it. F you. And started whooping some behind. So the mere act of Arab authorities in North Africa calling for Arab reinforcements from Balad Hashem was wrong. And the Arab reinforcements were wrong for going in and fighting the Berbers. They started that. So no, Berbers are better than Arabs. Not because they're Berber, but because Arabs oppressed them and still don't see them as equals. On Berber land. But a black Berber is better than a white Berber. For the same reasons I said. So no, we're not all equal anymore. We start off that way. God's rules are fair. The law is equal. But as we behave over time, we show that we are inferior or superior, and you consistently have shown when a darker person comes in the room, whether it's one of your people or another nationality, or not affiliated with any of your neighbors even, doesn't matter. When someone is dark in the room, they're the ones that catch it. It may even just be by the tongue, just insults. Hey, that's where it starts. You might make fun of them to their face, but then you do it behind their back. And either way, if you can't take it when they fire back, you know what? They're better than you. You can sit up here and the funny thing is, a lot of times the jokes that y'all got about people for being dark ain't even that funny, and y'all just be laughing and cracking up, and you sound like a bunch of hyenas when you laugh. Like, wow, somebody being darker than you really tickles you. It's like they put a clown hat on or something. Really funny to you. You got jokes ain't even funny and just be laughing. The whole time, ain't nobody making fun of you for your pink-toed, mayonnaise, undercooked looking self. Look like you stink. But see, when I say that, you got something to say to me. If you're not one of those that did this stuff, don't take offense. Just go to the ones that did and say, yeah, you earned that. Just go ahead. Just say to your folks, hey, look, Black Mind wasn't talking to me. I ain't the problem. You are. Go ahead and say it to him. He said mayonnaise. Yeah, but he ain't talking to me. He talking about you. I'm just light-skinned. You look like mayonnaise. You look like you stink. Because you got stuff to say about other people, and then you be laughing at your own jokes and they ain't even funny. See a black man walk into the room, same passport as you, same nationality. Hey, go ask him what time it is, so he has to look at his wrist. That's not even funny. That's why I call it white humor. This guy is asking He's asking if he can marry my cousin or something. Tell him she's already engaged. Just tell him a white lie. No, that's a black lie. A white lie is there are weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. That's a white lie. You don't even have your symbolism right. And you know what? I'm going to tell y'all in the audience this, my normal audience. A lot of times they love to point at Obama and blame him, say he was worse than Bush. No, he wasn't. I mean, the drone technology was more developed during his administration. So yeah, I mean, he had more drone strikes, of course, but Bush couldn't call in drone strikes that often. The technology wasn't as developed for most of his term. Obama didn't start any of them wars. And he didn't tell any of them lies either. Did he carry it on? Yeah. Did he start it? No. But they love to sit up and say that Obama was some kind of failure. Bush, by the time 9/11 happened, which was less than a year into Bush's administration, by the way, he had already taken 90 days of vacation. Understand, from January to September, 9 months. When 9/11 happened, it was 9 days short of 9 months of him being in office. Bush, baby Bush I'm talking about, with his stanky self, had already taken a third of that. He had taken 90 days. That was just over a third of his time in office. 3 months of vacation and only less than 9 days, less than 9 months in office. That little father mucker, that rabbit ran from work. And these non-black POC, especially to the Muslim, want to sit up and point at him like he was a great enemy of the Muslim world. He was about as much, a little bit less of one, I think, than Bush was. And I'm not a supporter of either of them. Ain't neither one of them black enough to be my president. And I mean politically black. I'm not even talking about DNA. And I'm talking, are you going to give reparations to black folk and make white folk pay? That's black enough. Oh, you ain't going to do it? F you then. May Allah curse you. Oh, so you're going to give something to other groups of people, but you're going to leave black folks out? F you. It doesn't matter. Republican or Democrat, they all done it. But they won't point the finger at Obama because he's black. And then when Trump was about to come in office, you had some of the Muslims for Trump. Whatever the hell happened to, you ain't supposed to participate in disbelievers' politics. Maybe lobbying for certain things, but not helping that process, not helping the political process where you rule by other than what Allah revealed. Whatever happened to that? Oh, but see, now you got this white conservative, so you're going to follow the conservatives. And then next thing you know, a few years later, you got the Ak right. I remember that. Started talking this crap, and then next thing you know, Hamza Yusuf is pathologizing blackness. And Asim Hakim is all lives mattering black folks. Yeah, you had a scholar here in Saudi. He's one of those that thinks everything is haram. I don't hate the man, but he seems to think everything is haram. He said dreadlocks were haram. I'm like, okay, so is straight hair haram because I'm afraid of you? I've learned to be afraid of straight hair, even though I had straight hair. My God, my poor father it must break his heart. I see him and I flinch. At least I shaved my head. I'm joking. I'm being sarcastic, but I mean, is straight hair haram because it's associated with oppression of us? Because I mean, there are black folks that feel that way. There are black folks, men and women alike, who see just a straight hair texture and think, yep, this is not, we can't be an ally. Can't trust this father mucker. Yeah, the black folks feel like that. So what about that? Somebody wrote to him and said, look, as a Muslim, How do we actually take the right side in this conflict? And this was during the first Black Lives Matter second Black Lives Matter demonstrations during 2016. Somebody asked him that. He was like, that's not our business and all lives matter. Hold up. It's not our business, huh? All lives matter. Black folks never said that all lives didn't matter. He literally did that in English. So I had no trouble translating. That's what's going on here. So no, y'all screwed that up. Whatever solidarity you might have gotten from us, and I got half of mine to reach out to Black South Africans and say, look, you can say that what they're going through is wrong, but don't go past that because they still call you Abid and Zanuj. And if they're Egyptian, they can't even pronounce Zanuj right. Zanuga. And proud of it. I would never change the Egyptian accent. Oh, you can't even pronounce a the? It's in Arabic. Why you can't pronounce it? Oh, brother, maybe if you pay me $9,000. Oh, okay. 9,000, huh? Huh, brother? You proud for nothing, can't even speak Arabic correctly. What I got to do to get that arrogance out of you? Leave you in the sun for 2 hours? I never forget this man. This was a few days after Kevin Hart was canceled in Egypt. Understand that. Canceled. And Jada Pinkett Shakur didn't make it no better because she made a Cleopatra movie or funded a Cleopatra movie being made with a Black Cleopatra. The problem was Cleopatra wasn't Black. Nefertiti was Black. Nefertari was Black. Jada Pinkett Shakur is anti-educational. She anti-intellectual. She heard Paul Mooney say Cleopatra was Black. Paul Mooney got the names wrong. He just mixed it up. He wasn't a historian, he was a comedian. Jada Pinkett Shakur got it from him. Yeah, Cleopatra was Black. And I'm a cheating B word with a bald head. I screwed my son's best friends. Cheat on my husband to do it. And she went, and understand, the Arab world knew about her. They already knew how she was. And then she turned around and did something like this. So she actually gave the Egyptians a legitimate complaint. She did that. But shortly after this, after the Kevin Hart show got canceled, I remember I just happened to bump into this Egyptian guy at a restaurant I went to one day for my lunch break. And he was like, are you from the U.S.? Yes, sir, I am. Oh, excellent. He started telling about some folks, some of his relatives and all that studied in the U.S. or lived there. And I told him about a relative of mine that had accepted Islam. And I said to him, yeah, man, look, we're trying to get him out of the U.S. And this man said, tell him to go to my country and study at Al-Azhar. And I said to him, hold up, to your country? Bruh, this relative of mine is Black. What's going to happen when he's there studying and someone calls him Abd or Zangi and he fights back, calls him a terrorist, they get into a fist fight and he wins? Is the government going to say that the citizen was wrong and my relative was right? Honestly, is the government going to say that? Or are they going to try to lock my relative up and extort him because he's American and he Black? What's going to happen? No, bro. If he comes over here to Saudi and someone says something like this, he can sue them for 50,000 riyal. He just needs a witness or a recording of some kind of proof. He has that. He gets 50,000 riyal out the person. That's the system. The guy that defends my son in Saudi, or that defends my cousin in Saudi, or that defends my other cousin in Saudi, because I got all these are all relatives of mine that are Muslim. The one that offends any of them in Saudi is going to pay. And he's only going to get away with it if there's no evidence. You got to prove it. That's the system. But let's say there's no proof that they call my relatives any names. No proof. Okay, that means my relatives get to call them terrorists. Who's going to prove anything? Case dismissed. Claim, counterclaim, cancel each other out anyway. But in Egypt, what's going to happen? And the guy ducked his head. And he started to nod in his head. And he actually said, "You're right, brother. You are correct. Maybe not. Al-Azhar University is good university, mashallah. But yes, people in Egypt are racist." See, back in 2016, an Egyptian guy told me that Egyptians were racist. And he said, one of the things he said was that in Egypt, what was different is that in Egypt, educated people were racist and would call us the N-word in English. But that in other countries, it was the uneducated that might be racist. That's what he told me. He said in Saudi, it ain't the educated people that are really racist. Now, when he said racist, he meant like actually having an antipathy for black people. Here, even the educated will call us slaves, but you can correct them by calling them the T word, and they get it. You may have a little bit of argument, but when you explain, look, I'm only saying this because you call us slaves. I know you're not the T word. You know we're not slaves. Now we're even like, okay, yeah, you got a point. I give him credit for that. I've done it, so I know. And I've done it to multiple people, so I know. But in Egypt, no. I already know. I've seen when Egyptians argue, you can't tell them nothing. They'll argue with you on Hajj. And I know because one of them was doing that. Turned out he was a Nubian. On Hajj, this guy was arguing because I said that Egyptian was a different language. It wasn't Arabic. And I meant that. I didn't say it as an insult. According to the rules of Arabic, there's certain things you can't do. They do it. Different language. Related to Arabic, but different. I was basing it on what they said. This dude started arguing. In the end, I found out he was a Southern Egyptian Nubian who spoke the Nubian language too, but he was getting all argumentative during Hajj about Arabic, which he didn't even speak. And the argument started because he mispronounced the word in Arabic. So I didn't understand him. I didn't know what this dude was talking about. Had no clue. A Saudi came along and told me in proper Arabic what the man said. I was like, oh, he pronounced it correctly. I turned to the Egyptian and said, that's why I didn't understand you, man. You mispronounced it. No, I would not change my Egyptian accent. I was like, bro, it's not accent. It's a language. I wasn't arguing. And this dude he started arguing during Hajj. Proud for nothing. For no reason. This man had every right to sit up and say to me, no, man, you're right. I'm from the South too. We should be doing it better than the Northerners. He had every right to say that. He didn't. So yeah, we're not facing violence, danger here per se. It's not it. I get that. But I ain't gonna lie, man. What we're facing here is a problem of ideas and words, but they can be so casually biased that I wonder at times how long it would take for the West to make them anti-Black. And I mean really in practice anti-Black. I wonder about that. We're safe. But I don't know if it's going to last a generation or if it's going to last 5 more generations. I don't know. I do know that it's been pretty bad here before. I know that that some brothers have faced police brutality. I know that a Black Saudi man and a Black Saudi woman both told me that there has been a rise in racism in Riyadh, at least over the past 4 years. And it's not been really directed at the women per se. They'll leave the women alone. But when it comes to the dudes, no. I know about this. Cops ain't been violent for the most part. For the most part. Now, my man, Mr. Hausawi, back in 2004, was roughed up by not a regular police officer, but a religious police officer. That was back in 2004, long time ago. He was an adult then, but he told me about this, and I was like, wait a minute, man. Dang, what the F? Religious police? And the cop, when he roughed up my man, he said to him, I curse the day that the king let you Nigerians come to this country. And my friend, Mr. Hausawi, though he is in fact of Nigerian origin, is a Saudi citizen going back generations. So the question I have then becomes, so why would this religious police officer wait until nobody's looking to do this sort of thing? Now, that was 2004. The religious police ain't around no more. But you know what? When Mr. Hausawi later was released and he went to fight that guy, all the others protected him and locked him out the building and told my man, Mr. Hausawi, you have the shaitan in you right now, and that's why you want to fight. No, Mr. Hausawi was right, and that police officer was wrong, and the other police officers were wrong for defending him. The right thing for them to do would have been to drag that guy out and beat him themselves, and then put him in jail for siding with the oppressor and not with the oppressed. That would have been the right thing to do, and that's the issue. They ain't ready to go that far. Ones that don't think of themselves as racist still aren't ready to go that far. But if we black folks start talking about, you know what, we're going to start cutting people's heads off. Well, you know, that's murder. And no, man, shuck that fit. That ain't murder. No, that's righteousness. If they are going to insult black folks and they got nothing to say about white folks, then, you know, it's righteousness. If we said something like that, they would question our very religion itself. I worry. I'm telling you, non-black people of color, especially those of you that are Muslim, even when you're not violent and you don't kill us, which is good, my question and other black folks' question is, even if you don't, are you going to change at some point and start doing like the real white folk to whom you look up? That's what I wonder. The thing is, if you're Muslim, you were required to be against white supremacy. Ain't no such thing as black supremacy. So don't talk about, well, I'm against that too. F you. If you say something like that, may Allah curse you for lying. Even if you would be against it, if it existed, the thing is it doesn't exist. So you're using a non-existent reason to simply not oppose white supremacy because that's actually your religion. And when you entertain these subconsciously racist ideas like they're not even racism, that's even worse because you were saying that Allah is like you. So you're accusing Allah of racism by not calling it racism, but by calling it nature. So you are blasphemed against the law, and I don't even count you Muslim if you have anti-black racism. Even if you're not violent, if you prefer white over black, forget about just marriage. If you think white is normal and black is abnormal, and you don't realize that, then you're a racist, but you're a bad Muslim. But if I point it out to you and you try to justify it, at that point, I'm telling you now, you are a hypocrite, kafir, disbeliever, blasphemer. You are an apostate, a murtad. You ain't Muslim, and I am. Now, how's that for takfir? If you were subconsciously a racist and didn't realize it, you were a bad Muslim, and you needed your ass whooped in the beginning by the jettest, blackest man you could find to beat your ass and tell you what to do, and you got to do it. But if you try to justify it after it's pointed out to you, it's just like if someone tells you, you know, making tawaf around the graves is an act of worship to the grave, and you didn't know that it was actually an act of worship for the grave. But someone shows you, then you try to justify it, you exit the faith. Well, that's clear cut. The scholars tell you that. I'm saying the same thing. You get them white supremacist ideas and someone shows you, no, bro, that's blasphemy, and you hold on to that, congratulations, blasphemer. May Allah curse you. And I'll tell you, no, you a disbeliever. I'm not even a scholar, but I can understand the link between that and disbelief, because white supremacy is another religion. And as a matter of fact, for those of you that are ultra conservative, super religious, and you want to talk this stuff, I'm going to go ahead and tell y'all straight away. You want to talk against black folks being concerned about black people because you're ultra religious, I'm going to tell you straight away, you even worse. Because what you do is you send a message that it's okay for whites to defend themselves, but black people have to be patient. So you're really sending a message that God revealed two different sets of rules for different races. So now you're accusing God of being an oppressor. In the name of you being ultra religious, you even worse, because you should know better. You that are ultra conservative are supposed to be at the forefront against white supremacy. You talk about false gods, idols, incorrect tawhid. Well, guess what? If you ain't opposing white supremacy and you know it exists, your tawhid is incorrect. Don't say nothing about Elijah Poole. We already know. Don't say nothing about him and a false god and a false tawhid. You go back to your people and tell them to oppose white supremacy. And that goes for skin bleach too. Tell them. How you gonna live in a sunny climate and you trying to bleach your skin? You'd rather die of skin cancer than have a healthy melanin count. If that ain't white supremacy, I don't know what the wuck is. And that's your religion. You got scholars that are still consider, well, skin bleach is okay, it's fine. Oh, really? That's fine, it's okay. If a woman dyes her hair blonde, but it was black hair initially, it's okay. If she puts in blue contact lenses, that's okay. But if I tell a woman, look, you know what? I may love you, but you need some color. You need some melanin. Get your butt out there in that sun. And dye your brown hair black, by the way, too. And here's some dark brown contact lenses. Oh, and here's a liquid perm, too. Put that in your hair and make it curly. So that she looks more ethnic. Oh, that's haram. If I tell her to get her hair twisted or in locks, that's haram. Yeah, you got scholars that have they don't think about this analytically, but this is what they just assume it. Like I said, they're not thinking about it, so they're not conscious. But when you point this out to them, and they could be scholars, you point this out to them, then they start trying to justify it. No, shuck that fit. And this is why it is that you got black folk now. There are plenty of people that are black, and they were Muslim and they left. And it's your fault. You did that. Sometimes some of them are worried about someone black marrying into their family only because especially if it's a black Westerner, only because they think, well, what if they don't stay Muslim? Bruh. If they don't, it's because of the way you are. Take the blame for that too. Have some accountability. No one told you to take God's religion and give it the most Bedouin interpretation you could possibly give it. Shadid Muhammad, who does not go hard enough on the gynocracy of Black America, does call this mess out. He does say to him, look, you don't know what my people have been through and you don't care. I can't explain it to you. You wouldn't understand it. It ain't your fault, but you don't care. We will deal with this. You can close your mouth. We're not worried about your problems. They ain't ours. We got our own things to fix. He tells them this and shouts out to him for doing it. Don't come talking to us about why we have to support Palestine. No. I mean, a lot of us do to a certain extent. But we also understand that getting out there and being vocal, all that does is put us at risk. And for what? I mean, what are you going to do? Take the ones who are out on the TV protesting on your behalf and now they can't get a job and say, well, look, we'll take care of you and put you through school, help you leave the U.S., help you leave the West because it's racist? Y'all going to do that? No. Whether you're Palestinian or not, whether you're anything else, you want to tell us what we need to be doing. What you going to do for us? Are you going to go ahead and stop selling simply what is immoral to sell according to what we may agree on? No, you ain't. Matter of fact, you know what? Let's say you got a gas station and you sell cigarettes, which are suicidal. They're worse than liquor. Let's say you got a gas station. Are you going to sell the patch so the black folk can quit smoking? The ones who do. Are you going to do it? No, you wouldn't even sell the patch. You can get your nicotine without breathing smoke in someone else's. You wouldn't even do that much. No, it has to be Marlboros, Newports. You going to take that porn off the shelf? Nope, you're not. You would never do it. What do you say? I won't make any money. That tells you should not have moved to a place like that. You weren't supposed to. I mean, you may have to, maybe you can't stay in your own country because it's bad, or it's not. It could be either way. I get it. Sometimes you got to live where you're from. We all do. But if you can't make money being an honest person according to your own faith, you ain't supposed to move to that location. So if in the States, you can only make money by selling things that are against your religion and mine, then you weren't supposed to move to the States. If you have to help Massa oppress us in order to make it in the States, don't move to the States. And stop lying and saying, well, you know, it's not really color, it's culture. You guys are dysfunctional. Stop lying and saying that. When you went to the U.S. Embassy to get that visa and they gave you one, they gave you a follow-up appointment. And at that follow-up appointment, after the visa was approved, you had to go take a class, and they sat up there and told you, don't ever side with the N-words. That's what they said. Avoid their neighborhoods. What they didn't tell you was that when you finally moved in and settled in whatever city in the state you were going to, in which you were going to settle, that the local government was not going to approve of your business in a white area. Or you ain't finna sell no alcohol and porn and cigarettes in a white area. I mean, they could buy it, but you ain't about to sit up there and open up that business and make that money off of them. Oh no, you're going to do this in a poor black area or poor Latin American area so that you can help us keep them down. Show us that you're on the side of white supremacy in our system, or we'll cancel that visa. And you said yes. If you didn't go on a student visa or already with a license to practice medicine or law, if you did not already go with those credentials or IT training, then you went over there to start a business that was designed to help keep the Black and Latin American communities down. And I don't fib a cuck about every Latin American community either, because some of them don't care nothing about black folks, but the truth is what it is. And the way some of you chase after them Latin American ladies, oh, bro, let's be honest. They see it. I've seen it. But that's another story. I'm not going to go into that in depth. I've already gone on for 3.5 hours. You all have been patient. But yeah, now, I hope I've done a good job of letting folks know why it is that this black POC solidarity is already tenuous, and Palestine's not an exception, even though we know that what they're going through is wrong. You got black folks who are going to be individually speaking out on behalf of Palestine. And when they do, you better hug them and thank them. And you better look for ways to try to help make their lives better. Charleston White, yeah, he ratchet. It's mostly he's playing a character. But even he said, no, Hamas was right. Israel was wrong. You've been doing the people wrong all this time. And he's a Christian, but he ain't no Zionist. You should be looking at ways to make Charleston White's life easier. You should be doing that. Absolutely, you should. I've been safe where I live now, and I'm really grateful for that. I mean that. But to you, POC, you have to understand that a lot of my people can't leave, and they ain't safe. And if you hear someone like me say something against white society, so mother cuss word what? Don't come asking us to change our tune. Because we've already been Palestine. And our Zionists were the race soldiers and the KKK and even judges and legislators. And there were times when you showed solidarity historically. Those of you that are Palestinian, those of you that not. There were times when you did. But when it came down to choices in your lives that it was time to make on an individual level, the bulk of you chose white supremacy over racial justice, and we did not. And that's where we're different. And if we heard somebody black saying something about y'all because of your DNA or because you're not black, we would check them. Come to find out, you wouldn't say a damn thing to granddad when he would call us Zanuck or Zanuj or slaves. You would not check him. And don't say, well, that was granddad. Granddad was wrong. Mama was wrong. Dad was wrong. Now you wrong. And everybody knows it. And then there are a lot of my people who don't understand the solution that Islam is. And what is the reason? It's because of you. You misrepresented our religion so that they could not see the solutions therein. The black folks that are Islamophobic are not Islamophobic because they want to be white. They're Islamophobic because of what they've seen coming from you. When white Islamophobes or Arabophobes, since they're not the same thing anyway, but when they insult you because you're not them. When black folk do insult you, they insult you not because of who you're not and what you're not, but because of what they've heard about you and what they've seen from you. I can't walk up to somebody black and just tell them all these bad things about you and they believe me. If they didn't believe it before, they won't believe it just because I say it. Unless they think I'm not black. But I don't do that to my people. So what does that mean? In order for them to have a grudge with you, it has to be based on something that actually they could observe. You called us names that you never called white folks. And you could not tolerate it when black folks started talking about you. And that's where it came from. And now you got black folks used to be Muslim and they leaving, and you can talk about what kind of tragedy and travesty that is all you want. I would agree, but the fact is you participated in that. You cannot point the finger at them until you point the others back at you and your daddy and your mama and your grandparents, because your culture was up fucked from jump, because you didn't follow God's religion. Messed up. And now you're being replaced. Thank you all for being patient. Sorry for taking so long. Chaos Reign, good to see you. I'm glad you could finally join in. And I want to thank everybody that came through on the Cash App. And as always, black heart, black mind, black out. Assalamu alaikum and black heterosexual non-select male power, because they don't like it. Black patriarchy until extinction or judgment day. Thank you all again for flying with us on Jet Black Airways, where jet black is also a verb. Keep jetting black with us until the wings and the wheels fall off. As always, gender justice forever.